Welcome to Audiobook Oasis, my haven for knowledge, inspiration, and captivating stories. Today we're bringing you an immersive journey into one of the most pressing challenges of our time, wildfires in the United States. Based on the book, America Ablaze, The Story of Wildfires in Resilience, this audiobook unravels the fascinating science, gripping history, and inspiring stories of communities rising from the ashes. You'll discover how wildfires ignite and spread, the heroic efforts to combat them, and the innovative solutions shaping the future of wildfire management. Whether you're a nature lover, a concerned citizen, or just curious about the power of fire, this story will leave you informed, inspired, and ready to make a difference. Before we dive into this fiery saga, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest audiobooks. Join us as we ignite a passion for knowledge and discovery. Now, let's step into the heart of the fire and uncover the resilience that defines us. Chapter 1. What are wildfires? Wildfires are one of the most powerful and destructive natural phenomena on Earth, yet they remain widely misunderstood. At their core, wildfires are uncontrolled fires that burn in natural areas such as forests, grasslands, or prairies. They have existed for millions of years and have played an integral role in shaping ecosystems, influencing plant evolution, and maintaining biodiversity. Despite their destructive potential, wildfires are not inherently bad. They are part of nature's cycle, helping to rejuvenate landscapes, clear out dead vegetation, and make way for new growth. However, when wildfires intersect with human activity, the consequences can be catastrophic. Understanding wildfires begins with recognizing the conditions that allow them to exist. Fires need three things: heat, oxygen, and fuel, a concept often referred to as the fire triangle. In natural settings, fuel can include dry vegetation, fallen leaves, dead trees, and even living plants during periods of drought. Heat sources can be natural, such as lightning strikes or volcanic eruptions, but human activities like discarded cigarettes, unattended campfires, and power line failures are also common culprits. Oxygen is, of course, abundant in the atmosphere, and once a fire ignites, it can grow rapidly under the right conditions. The United States is particularly susceptible to wildfires due to its vast and varied landscapes. From the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest to the arid scrublands of the Southwest and the grasslands of the Great Plains, the diversity of ecosystems creates unique challenges. Each region experiences wildfires differently based on local climate, vegetation, and geography. For instance, the West Coast is notorious for its wildfire season, which typically peaks in the late summer and fall when hot, dry conditions prevail. Meanwhile, the Southeast faces its own fire risks, often from prescribed burns that escape control or from lightning during summer storms. Wildfires are not random events. They are influenced by patterns in weather and climate. Prolonged droughts, extreme heat, and strong winds can create ideal conditions for a wildfire to ignite and spread. In recent decades, climate change has intensified these factors, contributing to longer and more severe fire seasons. Rising global temperatures and shifting precipitation patterns have dried out vegetation, turning forests and grasslands into tinderboxes. This has made wildfires more frequent, larger, and harder to control. Another key aspect of understanding wildfires is recognizing their human impact. As people build homes and communities closer to wildland areas, the risk of destruction increases. This zone where urban development meets natural landscapes is known as the wildland-urban interface. It is here that wildfires often cause the most damage, threatening lives, property, and infrastructure. The images of entire neighborhoods reduced to ashes are haunting reminders of the power of fire when it escapes the boundaries of nature and enters human spaces. The dual nature of wildfires, both as a natural force and a human problem, makes them a compelling topic to explore. They are not simply disasters to be feared, but phenomena to be understood. By examining the causes, behavior, and consequences of wildfires, we can begin to see the broader picture. Wildfires are part of the natural world, shaped by environmental conditions and human activity alike. They teach us about the fragility and resilience of ecosystems, the importance of preparedness, and the need for coexistence with nature. This understanding is the first step toward addressing the challenges wildfires present in an increasingly fire-prone world. Chapter 2. How Wildfires Start. Wildfires start when the right conditions align: a source of ignition, fuel and oxygen. While oxygen is universally present in the atmosphere, the other two elements, ignition and fuel, vary based on natural and human circumstances. The process by which wildfires begin is often deceptively simple, but the underlying causes and contributing factors can be complex, involving both environmental dynamics and human activity. Natural causes of wildfires are among the most common in remote, undeveloped areas. Lightning is the primary natural ignition source, responsible for igniting wildfires across the globe. A single strike of lightning, particularly a hot strike that lingers on the ground, can generate enough heat to ignite dry vegetation. In some cases, lightning storms may occur without accompanying rain, further increasing the likelihood of ignition. For centuries, ecosystems have evolved to adapt to these natural fire cycles, and in some regions, plant species rely on fire to trigger seed germination or reduce competition. Volcanic activity, though rarer, is another natural cause of wildfires. When a volcano erupts, it releases streams of lava, intense heat, and clouds of hot ash that can ignite surrounding vegetation. While these events are geographically limited, they demonstrate the raw power of nature in starting fires without any human involvement. However, natural causes, despite their prevalence in certain regions, are only part of the story when it comes to wildfires. Human activity plays an increasingly significant role in wildfire ignition, particularly in areas with growing populations and expanding development. One of the most common sources of human-caused wildfires is negligence. Campfires left unattended, discarded cigarette butts, or sparks from machinery can all lead to a fire under dry and windy conditions. These unintentional ignitions often occur near populated areas where the consequences can quickly become catastrophic. Arson is another human factor, involving the deliberate setting of fires. While the motives for arson vary, from vandalism to insurance fraud to mental illness, the results can be devastating, particularly when fires are lit in areas primed for rapid spread. Law enforcement agencies across the United States have increasingly focused on identifying and prosecuting arsonists, given the enormous costs in lives, property, and firefighting resources that these crimes can cause. Infrastructure failures also contribute significantly to wildfire ignitions. Power lines, in particular, have been implicated in some of the most destructive wildfires in U.S. history. Aging infrastructure combined with high winds and dry conditions creates a perfect storm for disaster. Sparks from downed or damaged lines can quickly ignite vegetation, and in many cases these fires spread faster than authorities can respond. Utilities in fire-prone areas have been under intense scrutiny, with some implementing planned power outages during extreme weather conditions to reduce the risk of ignition. Understanding how wildfires start also requires looking at the role of climate and weather. Drought conditions dry out vegetation, turning it into fuel that ignites more easily. High temperatures accelerate this drying process, while strong winds can carry embers over long distances, igniting new fires far from the original source. The interplay between these factors creates conditions where even a small spark can escalate to a massive conflagration. In many cases, multiple factors combine to create a wildfire. For example, a lightning strike might ignite a remote area of forest, but if the region is experiencing a prolonged drought and strong winds, the fire can quickly grow out of control. Similarly, a spark from a piece of machinery may seem minor, but in a landscape filled with dry grass and shrubs, it can become the starting point for a devastating blaze. The causes of wildfires are not just a matter of understanding ignition sources, but also recognizing the conditions that allow them to thrive. Land management practices, for instance, play a critical role in wildfire risk. Decades of fire suppression policies, particularly in the United States, have allowed dead vegetation to accumulate in forests, creating an overabundance of fuel. While these policies were initially intended to protect landscapes and communities, they have had the unintended consequence of making fires more intense and difficult to control when they do occur. Human activity has also exacerbated wildfire risks in other ways. Urban expansion into wildland areas increases the likelihood of accidental ignitions and places more lives and property in harm's way. Additionally, climate change has intensified the conditions that lead to wildfires, with rising temperatures, reduced snowpack, and more frequent droughts creating longer and more severe fire seasons. To address the causes of wildfires effectively, it is essential to consider both prevention and adaptation. Public education campaigns can reduce negligent behavior, such as improperly extinguished campfires or unsafe use of equipment. Improved infrastructure, such as insulated power lines and advanced fire detection systems, can help minimize human-caused ignitions. Land management strategies, including controlled burns and forest thinning, can reduce the fuel available for wildfires, making them less intense and easier to manage. Ultimately, understanding how wildfires start is the first step in mitigating their impact. While not all wildfires can be prevented, particularly those caused by natural events, human activity plays a significant role in increasing their frequency and severity. By addressing these factors, society can better coexist with wildfires, recognizing them as both a natural phenomenon and a challenge to be managed. Chapter 3. The Fire Triangle. Wildfires behave in ways that are both predictable and surprising, driven by a combination of physical principles, environmental conditions, and the unique characteristics of the landscapes they traverse. Understanding wildfire behavior is essential for effective management, firefighting, and preparation, as it provides insight into how fires ignite, spread, and evolve. While wildfires may seem chaotic, their behavior follows certain patterns dictated by factors such as weather, topography, and fuel availability. At the heart of wildfire behavior is the fire triangle: heat, oxygen, and fuel. When these three elements are present in sufficient quantities, a fire can sustain itself and grow. Heat is the ignition and sustaining force, whether generated by lightning, a spark, or human activity. Oxygen fuels the combustion process, which is almost always abundant in the atmosphere. Fuel is the most variable factor, as it encompasses the vegetation, debris, and other materials that a fire consumes. The amount, type, and moisture content of the fuel play a significant role in determining how intensely a fire burns and how rapidly it spreads. Weather conditions are among the most critical factors influencing wildfire behavior. Wind, temperature, and humidity interact in complex ways to either accelerate or inhibit fire growth. The wind is particularly influential because it drives the direction and speed of the fire's spread. A strong wind can carry embers, known as firebrands, over long distances, igniting new fires far ahead of the main blaze. These secondary fires, or spot fires, are a significant challenge for firefighters, as they can rapidly multiply the size of the fire and overwhelm containment efforts. Temperature also plays a crucial role. Higher temperatures preheat vegetation, making it easier to ignite and burn. During the day, the heat from the sun can create an environment where fuels are primed for combustion, especially in areas with prolonged exposure to sunlight. Conversely, cooler nighttime temperatures can sometimes slow a fire's progress, providing critical opportunities for firefighters to gain control. However, this cooling effect is not guaranteed, as other factors such as wind can keep a fire active even during the night. Humidity is another key weather variable. When the air is dry, vegetation loses moisture, becoming more flammable. Low humidity levels, often associated with drought conditions, create an environment where fires can ignite and spread rapidly. Conversely, higher humidity can slow fire growth by increasing the moisture content of fuels, making them harder to ignite. Weather patterns that bring dry air into fire-prone regions, such as the Santa Ana winds in California or Chinook winds in the Rockies, are often associated with the most destructive wildfires. The role of topography in wildfire behavior is equally significant. The shape and features of the land influence how a fire moves and spreads. Fires tend to move more quickly uphill than downhill because heat rises, preheating the vegetation above the fire. The steeper the slope, the faster the fire can travel upward, creating a phenomenon known as the chimney effect in narrow canyon. Conversely, fires often slow down or even stall when moving downhill or across flat terrain, although other factors like wind can counteract this tendency. The orientation of the landscape relative to the sun also matters. South-facing slopes in the northern hemisphere receive more sunlight, leading to drier conditions and more flammable vegetation. These slopes are more likely to experience intense and fast-moving fires compared to shaded, north-facing slopes. Narrow valleys and canyons can funnel wind, increasing its speed and intensity, which can amplify fire behavior in these areas. Fuel characteristics are another critical determinant of wildfire behavior. The type of vegetation, whether it is grass, shrubs, or trees, affects the fire's intensity and spread. Fine fuels, such as dry grass and pine needles, ignite easily and burn quickly, creating fast-moving fires. Larger fuels, such as logs and tree trunks, burn more slowly but release more heat. The arrangement of fuels is also important. Dense, continuous vegetation allows fires to spread more easily than fragmented or sparse fuels. The vertical arrangement of fuels, from ground-level grasses to tree canopies, determines whether a fire stays on the ground or transitions into a crown fire, which burns through the treetops and is much harder to control. Crown fires are among the most destructive and challenging to manage because they can move rapidly through the canopy and generate their own weather. These fires can create firestorms where the intense heat generates strong, erratic winds that further spread the fire. In some cases, firestorms can produce pyrocumulus clouds, which are towering smoke-filled clouds formed by the intense heat of the fire. These clouds can generate lightning, potentially sparking new fires miles away from the original blaze. In addition to these natural factors, human influences also shape wildfire behavior. Fire suppression efforts, for instance, can create conditions that make future fires more severe. By preventing smaller natural fires, dead vegetation accumulates over time, increasing the available fuel for a larger, more intense fire. Urban development near wildland areas also alters fire behavior by introducing new types of fuel, such as buildings and vehicles, and by creating barriers that may divert or concentrate fire movement. The interaction of these factors, weather, topography, fuel, and human activity, creates a dynamic and unpredictable environment for wildfires. While certain patterns can be identified, each fire is unique, shaped by the specific conditions at the time of ignition and throughout its progression. Predicting wildfire behavior requires sophisticated modeling and real-time observation, combining satellite data, weather forecasts, and on-the-ground reports to anticipate how a fire will evolve. Understanding wildfire behavior is not just an academic exercise, it has practical implications for firefighting strategies, land management, and community preparedness. By studying how fires move and what influences their behavior, we can develop better tools and practices to reduce their impact. This knowledge is vital in an era of increasing wildfire intensity and frequency, driven by climate change and expanding human development into fire-prone areas. Recognizing the patterns and drivers of wildfire behavior is a crucial step in mitigating their effects and protecting both natural landscapes and human communities. Chapter 4. Wildfire Behavior. The Geography of Wildfires in the United States reveals the significant diversity of fire-prone landscapes and the unique challenges each region faces. Wildfires do not occur uniformly across the country. Their prevalence, intensity, and characteristics are deeply influenced by regional climate, vegetation types, and topographical features. From the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest to the arid deserts of the Southwest, each area presents its own set of wildfire dynamics, making a comprehensive understanding of geography essential to addressing the wildfire problem. The western United States is often considered synonymous with wildfire activity, particularly in states like California, Oregon, Washington, and Arizona. This region's vulnerability stems from its climate, marked by long, dry summers and periodic droughts. The Mediterranean climate of California, for instance, features wet winters that promote vegetation growth followed by hot, dry summers that turn this vegetation into fuel. In addition, the region is home to the Santa Ana winds, dry and powerful winds that sweep through Southern California, dramatically increasing the speed and intensity of fires by carrying embers and igniting new blazes miles ahead of the main fire front. The Pacific Northwest, known for its temperate rainforests and lush landscapes, might seem an unlikely candidate for wildfires. However, its dense forests of coniferous trees can become highly flammable during the summer months when rainfall decreases. Fires in this region often grow rapidly due to the availability of large, mature trees and dry underbrush. The topography, featuring rugged mountains and steep valleys, makes firefighting efforts particularly challenging, as these fires can spread unpredictably with changes in wind direction and slope. Moving inland, the Rocky Mountain region faces its own set of wildfire challenges. The dry climate of the Rockies, combined with vast stretches of pine forests, creates an environment ripe for wildfires. So one significant factor in this region is the widespread presence of dead and dying trees caused by bark beetle infestations. These beetles, thriving due to warmer winters and longer growing seasons linked to climate change, have killed millions of trees, leaving vast amounts of highly flammable material. When wildfires ignite in these areas, they can quickly escalate into large-scale disasters. The Great Plains, often overlooked in discussions about wildfires, are not immune to fire activity. Grasslands dominate this region, and while they may not produce the towering flames seen in forest fires, grass fires are among the fastest-moving wildfires due to the fine, dry fuel and open terrain. These fires can spread at incredible speeds, driven by strong winds that are common in the central United States. Grass fires are particularly dangerous for rural communities and agricultural areas where they can devastate crops, livestock, and infrastructure. The southeast United States presents a different wildfire landscape. States like Florida, Georgia, and Alabama experience fires year-round due to the region's warm climate and abundant vegetation. The southeast is also known for its frequent prescribed burns, which are intentional fires set by land managers to reduce fuel loads and promote ecosystem health. While these burns are essential for maintaining certain habitats, they occasionally escape containment and become uncontrolled wildfires. Additionally, lightning strikes during the summer storm season contribute significantly to natural wildfire occurrences in this region. The Northeast and Midwest, though less fire-prone than other regions, still experience wildfires, albeit on a smaller scale. In these areas, fires often occur in deciduous forests and are typically fueled by dead leaves, twigs, and other organic matter that accumulate on the forest floor. While these fires are usually less intense than those in the West, they can still pose significant risks to nearby communities and infrastructure, especially during dry periods. One of the most critical areas for understanding wildfire geography is the wildland-urban interface, where human development meets natural landscapes. This zone has become increasingly significant as more people move into fire-prone regions, drawn by the beauty and tranquility of rural and forested areas. The WI is a hotspot for wildfire risk because it combines highly flammable vegetation with human infrastructure, creating conditions where fires can cause devastating damage. In areas like California's foothills or the forests surrounding Denver, wildfires in the WI often result in the loss of homes, businesses, and lives. The interplay between geography and climate is another vital consideration. Climate change has altered the wildfire landscape across the United States, amplifying risks in virtually every region. Rising temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, and prolonged droughts have extended fire seasons and increased the likelihood of extreme fire events. In places like Alaska, where wildfires historically played a smaller role, warming temperatures have thawed permafrost and dried out vast stretches of tundra, leading to unprecedented fire activity. Regional variations in vegetation also influence the types of fires that occur. In forested regions, wildfires may remain as ground fires, burning only the underbrush and surface fuels, or they may develop into crown fires that consume the tree canopy and leap across treetop. In grasslands, fires are typically fast-moving surface fires, spreading quickly but burning out relatively fast once they exhaust their limited fuel. In deserts, fires are less frequent due to sparse vegetation, but when they do occur, they can be fueled by invasive grasses such as cheatgrass, which thrives in disturbed areas and creates a continuous fuel source. Topography is another crucial geographic factor. Steep slopes, narrow valleys, and rugged terrain can all influence fire behavior by directing wind flow, accelerating fire spread, and making firefighting efforts more challenging. Fires tend to move more quickly uphill because heat rises, preheating vegetation ahead of the flames. This effect is particularly pronounced in mountainous regions, where the combination of steep slopes and dense forests creates a high-risk environment. The geography of wildfires is not just about where they occur, but also about how people interact with these landscapes. The expansion of human development into fire-prone areas has increased the stakes, as more lives and property are now at risk. Land use planning, building codes, and community preparedness are critical tools for addressing these challenges, but they must be tailored to the unique characteristics of each region. What works in the grasslands of Kansas may not be effective in the forests of Oregon or the deserts of Arizona. Ultimately, understanding the geography of wildfires is essential for developing effective prevention, mitigation, and response strategies. Each region's unique combination of climate, vegetation, topography, and human development shapes the wildfire risks and challenges it faces. By appreciating these geographic distinctions, we can better prepare for and adapt to the evolving wildfire landscape across the United States. Chapter 5. The Geography of Wildfires. The ecological role of wildfires is one of nature's most complex and often misunderstood processes. While wildfires are frequently viewed through the lens of destruction, they play a vital role in maintaining the health and balance of ecosystems. Fire has been a natural force for millions of years, shaping landscapes, influencing species evolution, and fostering biodiversity. Understanding the ecological functions of wildfires allows us to see them not merely as catastrophic events, but as essential components of many natural systems. At its core, fire acts as a natural reset button for ecosystems. In many environments, fire clears out dead and decaying vegetation, making room for new growth. Without fire, plant material can accumulate over time, creating dense underbrush that can choke ecosystems and make them less resilient. While periodically burning away this excess, fires prevent the buildup of fuel that could otherwise lead to larger, more destructive fires in the future. This process is particularly important in fire-adapted ecosystems, where periodic fires are part of the natural cycle. Certain plant species have evolved to depend on fire for their survival and reproduction. For example, some coniferous trees, such as lodgepole pines, have serotinous cones that remain sealed with resin until exposed to the intense heat of a wildfire. Once the fire passes, the cones open, releasing seeds onto the nutrient-rich ash-covered ground, where they can germinate and grow in the absence of competing vegetation. Similarly, some grasses and shrubs require fire to stimulate seed germination or to create the conditions necessary for their seedlings to thrive. Fire also helps maintain biodiversity by creating a mosaic of habitats within a landscape. When a wildfire burns through an area, it does not affect all parts of the landscape equally. Some areas may burn intensely, while others are left untouched or only lightly scorched. This variation creates a patchwork of habitats that support a wide range of species, each adapted to different stages of recovery after a fire. For example, some animals thrive in the open spaces and new growth created by fire, while others rely on the remaining patches of unburned vegetation for shelter and food. Wildfires also play a crucial role in nutrient cycling. When vegetation burns, it releases nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium back into the soil. These nutrients, which were previously locked up in plant material, become available for new plant growth. The ash left behind by a fire acts as a natural fertilizer, enriching the soil and promoting the regrowth of vegetation. This nutrient boost can be particularly beneficial in ecosystems with nutrient-poor soils, such as pine forests and savannas. In grasslands, fire prevents the encroachment of woody plants and maintains the open character of the landscape. Without periodic fires, grasslands can gradually transition to shrublands or forests, altering the ecosystem and the species it supports. Fire ensures that grasses remain the dominant vegetation, sustaining the herbivores and predators that rely on these habitats. For example, in the Great Plains of the United States, controlled burns are used to mimic the natural fire cycles that once maintained the region's vast grasslands. In forests, fire can help control pests and diseases that might otherwise devastate tree populations. Many insects and pathogens target weak or stressed trees, and fires can remove these vulnerable individuals, reducing the overall burden on the ecosystem. In some cases, fire can also disrupt the life cycles of pests, such as bark beetles, by destroying their habitat or larvae. This natural form of pest control helps maintain the health and resilience of forest ecosystem. Aquatic ecosystems can also benefit indirectly from wildfires. When fire clears vegetation near rivers and streams, it can increase sunlight reaching the water, promoting the growth of algae and aquatic plants that form the base of the food web. Additionally, the influx of nutrients from burned vegetation can support the productivity of aquatic ecosystems. However, the benefits to aquatic systems are often more nuanced, as excessive sediment or ash runoff can temporarily harm water quality. Despite these ecological benefits, the relationship between fire and ecosystems is not without its challenges, particularly in the modern era. Human activities have significantly altered natural fire regimes, often with unintended consequences. Decades of fire suppression policies, especially in the United States, have disrupted the natural cycle of fire in many ecosystems. While these policies were initially intended to protect forests and communities, they have led to the accumulation of fuels, making modern wildfires larger, more intense, and more difficult to control. Climate change has further complicated this dynamic by altering the conditions that influence fire behavior. Warmer temperatures, prolonged droughts, and changes in precipitation patterns have extended fire seasons and increased the frequency of extreme fire events. These changes can push ecosystems beyond their natural limits, making it harder for them to recover and adapt to fire. For example, in some regions, repeated high-intensity fires have transformed forests into shrublands or grasslands, permanently altering the landscape and reducing biodiversity. Invasive species also play a role in disrupting the natural relationship between fire and ecosystems. Non-native plants, such as cheatgrass in the western United States, can alter fire regimes by providing continuous and highly flammable fuel. These invasive species often thrive in the aftermath of a fire, outcompeting native plants and creating conditions for more frequent and intense fires. This feedback loop can degrade ecosystems and make them less resilient to future disturbances. Managing the ecological role of wildfires requires a delicate balance between allowing natural fire processes to occur and protecting human lives and property. Controlled burns, also known as prescribed fires, are one tool used to mimic the natural role of fire while reducing the risk of catastrophic wildfires. By carefully planning and executing these burns, land managers can remove excess fuels, promote ecosystem health, and restore natural fire cycles. However, prescribed burns require careful planning and monitoring to ensure they achieve their ecological goals without escaping control. In some cases, mechanical thinning, where excess vegetation is manually removed, is used as an alternative or complement to fire. This approach can be particularly useful in areas where prescribed burns are not feasible, such as near urban developments or in ecosystems with high fuel loads. By combining thinning with other management practices, it is possible to create landscapes that are both fire resilient and ecologically healthy. Ultimately, understanding the ecological role of wildfires is essential for striking the right balance between allowing fire to fulfill its natural functions and mitigating its impacts on human communities. Fire is not inherently good or bad, it is a natural process that has shaped ecosystems for millennia. So, embracing this understanding, we can develop strategies that protect both people and the environment, ensuring that fire continues to play its vital role in the natural world. Chapter 6: Historical Perspective. Wildfires have profound and far-reaching effects on human communities, influencing nearly every aspect of life in regions where they occur. These impacts extend well beyond the immediate destruction of property and landscapes, touching on health, economics, culture, and social dynamics. As wildfires become more frequent and intense in many parts of the world, particularly in the United States, understanding their effects on human communities is critical for preparing, responding, and recovering from these events. The most visible and immediate impact of wildfires is the destruction of homes, infrastructure, and businesses. Entire neighborhoods can be reduced to ashes in the path of a fast-moving fire, leaving thousands of people homeless in a matter of hours. The loss of physical structures is not just a financial burden, it also represents the destruction of personal history, cherished memories, and a sense of place. For many, the emotional toll of losing a home or community is one of the most devastating aspects of wildfire events. The destruction extends to critical infrastructure, including roads, bridges, power lines, and water systems. Wildfires can knock out electricity for days or weeks, leaving communities without lighting, refrigeration, or the ability to pump water. In some cases, fires damage telecommunications infrastructure, cutting off access to cell phones and the internet, which are essential for emergency communication. The disruption of these services complicates evacuation efforts, hampers firefighting operations, and delays recovery. The wildfires also pose significant threats to human health. Direct exposure to flames, intense heat, and smoke can result in injury or death. Firefighters and first responders are at particular risk, as they work in dangerous conditions to contain and extinguish fires. Beyond the immediate danger, the smoke from wildfires contains a mixture of fine particulate matter, carbon monoxide, and toxic chemicals that can travel hundreds of miles, affecting air quality far from the fire's origin. Prolonged exposure to wildfire smoke can exacerbate respiratory conditions, such as asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, as well as increase the risk of cardiovascular issues. Children, the elderly, and individuals with pre-existing health conditions are particularly vulnerable to these effects. The mental health impacts of wildfires are often overlooked but can be profound and long-lasting. Experiencing a wildfire, especially one that results in evacuation, loss of property, or fatalities, can lead to significant psychological stress. Many individuals develop anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, in the aftermath of a fire. The uncertainty of living in fire-prone areas, coupled with the trauma of past experiences, can create a persistent sense of fear and vulnerability that affects daily life. Economically, wildfires impose staggering costs on individuals, businesses, and governments. For homeowners, the financial burden includes not only the loss of property, but also the costs of rebuilding, which can be exacerbated by rising construction costs and insurance premiums. Some individuals and families may find themselves underinsured or unable to afford the expenses associated with starting over, leading to financial ruin. Businesses in wildfire-affected areas often face losses due to damaged facilities, disrupted operations, and reduced customer access. For industries such as agriculture, tourism, and forestry, the economic consequences can be especially severe as fires destroy crops, landscapes, and natural resources that are essential to their operations. Governments at all levels incur significant expenses related to wildfire management, including the costs of firefighting, evacuation, and disaster recovery. In recent years, the costs of wildfire suppression have skyrocketed, consuming increasing portions of federal and state budgets. These expenses often come at the expense of other public services, creating difficult trade-offs for policymakers. Additionally, the economic ripple effects of wildfires can extend far beyond the immediate area, affecting regional and even national economies. Cultural and social impacts of wildfires are deeply felt in affected communities. For indigenous peoples whose cultural practices and traditions are often closely tied to the land, wildfires can destroy sacred sites, disrupt traditional ecological knowledge, and alter the landscapes that are integral to their way of life. So many indigenous groups view fire as a natural and necessary element of their environment and have historically used controlled burns to manage ecosystems. The loss of traditional burning practices due to colonial policies and fire suppression efforts has disrupted these cultural connections and contributed to the severity of modern wildfires. In rural and agricultural areas, wildfires can devastate livelihoods by destroying crops, grazing lands, and livestock. Farmers and ranchers face the dual challenge of recovering from immediate losses while also contending with the long-term impacts on soil health and land productivity. For many, the financial and emotional strain of starting over can lead to significant social consequences, including the depopulation of rural areas as families leave in search of more stable opportunities. Urban areas are not immune to the social consequences of wildfires. In cities, fires that encroach on the wildland-urban interface, can exacerbate existing inequalities, as lower-income communities often lack the resources to recover from disaster. These populations may live in more vulnerable housing, have limited access to insurance, and face greater challenges in accessing disaster assistance. The displacement caused by wildfires can also strain social services, increase homelessness, and create tensions within and between communities as they compete for limited resources. Wildfires also highlight broader societal issues, such as the growing impact of climate change and the inequities in disaster response and recovery. Climate change has made many regions more fire-prone by increasing temperatures, reducing precipitation, and lengthening fire seasons. These changes disproportionately affect communities that are already vulnerable, whether due to economic disadvantage, geographic location, or historical marginalization. Addressing the human impacts of wildfires requires not only immediate responses but also long-term strategies to build resilience and reduce vulnerability. Despite these challenges, wildfires often inspire acts of resilience, solidarity, and innovation within affected communities. Evacuations and recovery efforts frequently bring people together, fostering a sense of shared purpose and mutual support. Communities affected by wildfires often develop stronger emergency preparedness plans, advocate for better land use policies, and invest in fire-resistant infrastructure. These efforts not only reduce the risk of future disasters, but also strengthen the social fabric of the community. Education and outreach play a critical role in mitigating the human impacts of wildfires. Public awareness campaigns can help individuals and communities understand their risk, prepare for emergencies, and take steps to protect their homes and families. Programs that teach fire-safe landscaping, home hardening techniques, and evacuation planning can significantly reduce the human toll of wildfires. Additionally, fostering a culture of preparedness and resilience helps communities face future challenges with greater confidence and capability. Ultimately, the human impacts of wildfires are as diverse and complex as the communities they affect. Addressing these impacts requires a holistic approach that considers not only the immediate needs of affected individuals but also the broader social, economic, and cultural factors that shape their experiences. By understanding and addressing these challenges, we can build communities that are not only more resilient to wildfires, better equipped to thrive in an era of increasing environmental change. Chapter 7: Wildfire Season. The role of technology and innovation in wildfire management has grown significantly in recent years, transforming how we predict, prevent, detect, and combat wildfires. As wildfires become larger, more frequent, and increasingly destructive due to climate change and human activities, the demand for advanced tools and techniques to address this growing challenge has never been greater. From satellite imagery to artificial intelligence, technology is reshaping every aspect of wildfire management, offering hope for more effective and efficient solutions. Predicting wildfires is one of the most critical areas where technology plays a pivotal role. Advances in meteorological science, coupled with powerful computational models, enable scientists to forecast fire weather conditions with increasing accuracy. These predictions rely on real-time data about temperature, humidity, wind patterns, and fuel moisture levels collected through a combination of ground-based sensors, weather stations, and satellites. High-resolution weather models can identify areas at high risk for ignition, helping fire managers prioritize resources and issue warnings to at-risk communities. Remote sensing technology has revolutionized our ability to monitor and track wildfires. Satellites equipped with thermal imaging sensors, such as those operated by NASA and NOAA, can detect heat signatures from wildfires, even in remote or inaccessible areas. These satellites provide near real-time data on fire location, size, and intensity, offering invaluable information for emergency responders. Additionally, the use of drones equipped with infrared cameras has become increasingly common in wildfire operations. Drones can fly close to active fire lines, providing detailed imagery and MACM data that would be dangerous or impossible to obtain through manned aircraft. Artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning are emerging as powerful tools for analyzing vast amounts of data related to wildfires. These technologies can identify patterns and trends that human analysts might miss, enabling more accurate predictions and faster decision-making. For example, AI algorithms can analyze historical fire data, weather patterns, and vegetation conditions to forecast where and when fires are likely to occur. Machine learning models can also process satellite images to automatically detect new fire ignitions, reducing the time it takes to respond to emerging threats. to use of Geographic Information Systems, GIS, has become indispensable in wildfire management. GIS allows for the integration and visualization of spatial data, enabling fire managers to create detailed maps of fire perimeters, evacuation zones, and resource locations. These maps are essential for coordinating firefighting efforts and ensuring public safety. GIS technology also supports long-term planning by identifying high-risk areas and assessing the effectiveness of fuel reduction projects, such as prescribed burns or mechanical thinning. In the realm of firefighting, technology has significantly enhanced the tools and equipment available to first responders. Modern firefighting aircraft, such as water bombers and helicopters, are equipped with advanced navigation systems and thermal imaging cameras that allow them to operate effectively in challenging conditions. Ground crews benefit from innovations like portable weather stations, GPS-enabled tracking systems, and fire-resistant protective gear designed to withstand extreme heat. Robots and unmanned ground vehicles are also being developed to assist in hazardous tasks, such as clearing fire lines or delivering supplies to isolated crews. Communication technology is another area where innovation has had a profound impact. During a wildfire, clear and reliable communication is essential for coordinating firefighting effort, disseminating information to the public, and ensuring the safety of personnel. Advances in satellite communications, mobile networks, and emergency broadcasting systems have made it possible to maintain connectivity even in remote or disaster-affected areas. Mobile apps and online platforms now provide real-time updates on fire activity, evacuation orders, and air quality, empowering individuals and communities to make informed decisions during emergencies. One of the most promising areas of innovation is the use of prescribed burns and other proactive measures to reduce wildfire risk. While prescribed burns have been used for centuries by indigenous peoples, modern technology is enhancing their precision and safety. Fire managers can now use drones to ignite controlled burns in hard-to-reach areas, while sensors and monitoring systems ensure that these burns stay within designated boundaries. Advanced modeling software helps predict how prescribed burns will behave under different conditions, minimizing the risk of unintended consequences. Energy infrastructure, a common source of wildfire ignitions, is also benefiting from technological advancements. Utilities are investing in technologies such as weather monitoring stations, high-definition cameras, and advanced sensors to detect and prevent equipment-related fires. Some power companies are using AI to analyze data from sensors and identify faults or conditions that could lead to sparking. In high-risk areas, utilities are burying power lines or installing insulated conductors to reduce the risk of ignition during windy conditions. Public engagement and education have also been transformed by technology. Social media platforms, mobile apps, and interactive websites allow agencies to share critical information about wildfire prevention, preparedness, and response. Virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, are being used to create immersive training experiences for firefighters and to educate the public about wildfire risks and safety measures. These tools make it easier to convey complex information in an accessible and engaging way, fostering greater awareness and resilience within communities. Technology is also playing a crucial role in addressing the environmental impacts of wildfires. Innovative methods for restoring fire-damaged ecosystems include the use of drones to plant seeds in burned areas, speeding up reforestation efforts. Remote sensing and AI are used to monitor the recovery of vegetation and wildlife after a fire, providing valuable insights into the long-term effects of wildfire on ecosystems. These technologies support more effective restoration strategies, helping to mitigate the ecological consequences of wildfire events. Despite these advancements, challenges remain in integrating technology into wildfire management. Many rural and under-resourced communities lack access to the latest tools and technologies, creating disparities in wildfire preparedness and response. Additionally, the cost of developing and implementing advanced technologies can be prohibitive, requiring sustained investment and collaboration among governments, private companies, and research institutions. Another challenge is the need for interoperability among different technologies and agencies. Wildfire management often involves multiple stakeholders, including federal, state and local governments, private landowners, and non-profit organizations. Assuring that these entities can share data and coordinate effectively is critical for maximizing the benefits of technological innovations. Looking ahead, the future of wildfire management will likely be shaped by continued advancements in technology and innovation. As climate change increases the complexity of wildfire behavior, new tools and strategies will be needed to address these challenges. Emerging technologies such as autonomous firefighting vehicles, advanced satellite systems, and real-time analytics powered by quantum computing hold the potential to revolutionize our approach to wildfire management. Ultimately, technology and innovation are not panaceas but powerful tools that, when combined with human expertise, community engagement, and sound policy, can help mitigate the growing threat of wildfires. By harnessing the potential of these advancements, we can improve our ability to predict, prevent, and respond to wildfires, protecting lives, property, and ecosystems for generations to come. Chapter 8: Firefighting Tactics. The complex relationship between wildfires and climate change has become one of the most pressing concerns in the field of environmental science. As the planet warms and extreme weather events become more frequent, wildfires have intensified in terms of both size and severity. The intricate ways in which climate change influences wildfire behavior and frequency reveal an urgent need to understand these dynamics, as they will continue to shape ecosystems, human communities, and the global environment for years to come. To the heart of the climate-wildfire relationship is the increasing frequency of extreme weather conditions, such as prolonged droughts, high temperatures, and unpredictable wind patterns, which create the perfect conditions for wildfires to ignite and to spread. Climate change has significantly altered precipitation patterns across many regions, leading to dry conditions that leave forests, grasslands, and shrublands more susceptible to ignition. Extended dry periods make vegetation more flammable, while warmer temperatures accelerate the drying process, creating a feedback loop where the risk of wildfires increases as the climate continues to warm. Drought is one of the most direct links between climate change and wildfire behavior. As global temperatures rise, regions that were once prone to regular seasonal droughts are experiencing longer and more severe dry spells. In the western United States, for instance, areas that were once characterized by seasonal wet and dry periods now face extended droughts, creating ideal conditions for wildfire ignitions. During drought, soil moisture levels drop, and vegetation loses its natural water reserves, causing plants to become more stressed and more likely to catch fire. This scenario is exacerbated by climate models predicting more frequent and intense drought events as a result of global warming. Another critical component of the climate-wildfire interaction is the increasing intensity of heat waves. As global temperatures continue to rise, heat waves have become longer, more frequent, and more intense, creating a perfect storm for wildfires. High temperatures not only dry out vegetation, but also cause the air to become less humid, further promoting the spread of flames. Heat waves can ignite fires by increasing the likelihood of spontaneous combustion in dry fuel sources, such as dead trees and plant material. This connection between heat waves and wildfire activity is particularly concerning because the warming climate is expected to make heat waves more extreme, further increasing the potential for catastrophic fires. In addition to increased temperatures and drought, shifting wind patterns are playing an essential role in the behavior of wildfires. Winds are one of the most important factors influencing the spread of fire, as they can carry embers over long distances, starting new fires miles away from the original blaze. Strong gusty winds, which are becoming more common in many regions due to climate change, allow wildfires to jump fire breaks, overtake fire lines, and spread rapidly. In areas prone to seasonal wind events, such as the Santa Ana winds in Southern California, wildfires can be whipped into ferocious, fast-moving infernos that are nearly impossible to control. These winds, fueled by climate change, are one of the primary reasons why wildfires have become so destructive in recent decades. Another indirect consequence of climate change is the disruption of ecosystems and vegetation, which further increases wildfire risk. Warmer temperatures and altered precipitation patterns are shifting plant and tree distributions, leading to the proliferation of species that are more fire-prone. In many forests, the composition of vegetation is changing, as fire-sensitive species are replaced by more flammable ones, such as invasive grasses, shrubs or pine species that thrive in dry conditions. This change in vegetation composition increases the fuel load in certain ecosystems, providing more material for fires to burn. For example, in the western United States, invasive species like cheatgrass have significantly increased the frequency and intensity of wildfires by providing highly flammable fuel that burns much more quickly than native plants. Additionally, pests and pathogens that thrive in warmer temperatures are also contributing to the increasing wildfire risk. Forests that are stressed due to higher temperatures and drought are more susceptible to infestations of insects such as bark beetles. These beetles attack trees, weakening them and making them more vulnerable to fire. The dieback of large numbers of trees, particularly in areas that have experienced multiple years of drought, results in vast amounts of dead wood and biomass, which provide ample fuel for wildfires. Insects and diseases exacerbate the vulnerability of forests to fire, accelerating the pace of deforestation and increasing the likelihood of wildfires. The longer fire seasons, driven by climate change, are creating additional challenges for firefighting efforts. Fire seasons in regions like California, Australia, and parts of the Mediterranean have become longer, stretching well beyond the traditional summer months. As temperatures remain high and precipitation continues to decline, wildfires now occur throughout the year rather than being concentrated in certain months. This extended fire season places a strain on firefighting resources, as fire crews and equipment are in use for longer periods, leaving less time for recovery and preparation for the next fire. It also means that wildfire recovery processes, such as forest regeneration, are being disrupted, as ecosystems are not given enough time to recover before another fire starts. In addition to these direct physical impacts, climate change is influencing the global human response to wildfires. The increased intensity of fires and their growing unpredictability means that evacuation plans, disaster relief, and recovery efforts must evolve to meet the challenges posed by an ever-worsening fire risk. Communities that were previously not considered fire-prone are now facing regular wildfire threats, leading to new challenges in preparedness and risk management. In some regions, governments are taking more proactive approaches by investing in controlled burns, creating defensible space around homes, and encouraging fire-resistant construction materials to mitigate the growing risk. However, these measures must be paired with broader climate action to effectively address the root cause of the problem. Addressing the intersection of climate change and wildfire risk requires comprehensive mitigation strategies. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions through global efforts to transition to renewable energy sources, implement carbon sequestration practices, and reduce deforestation is crucial to slowing the warming of the planet. These efforts must be complemented by local strategies, such as fire-adaptive community planning and better land management practices. By reducing the fuel loads in forests and other fire-prone areas, ecosystems can be made more resilient to fire. So this may involve prescribed burns, forest thinning, and controlled grazing to ensure that vegetation is maintained at a manageable level. Furthermore, investing in research and technological innovations that improve wildfire prediction, detection, and suppression is vital for addressing the increasingly complex wildfire problem. Advancements in satellite-based monitoring systems, artificial intelligence, and machine learning can provide early warning systems and more precise forecasting models to help communities and fire management agencies prepare for and respond to wildfires more effectively. Finally, adaptation efforts must also focus on building community resilience to wildfire risks. This includes investing in public education campaigns to raise awareness of fire risks and encouraging homeowners to adopt fire-safe practices, such as creating defensible space around properties and using fire-resistant materials in construction. In fire-prone regions, communities can build evacuation plans and establish systems for emergency alerts to ensure that residents are informed and prepared when a wildfire threatens. The relationship between climate change and wildfires is complex, but there is hope that through a combination of mitigation, adaptation, and technological innovation, we can better manage the risks posed by wildfires in the future. So by addressing the underlying causes of climate change and preparing for the inevitable consequences, we can work to protect ecosystems, communities, and economies from the devastating effects of increasingly frequent and intense wildfires. The challenge is immense, but it is one that can be met with concerted global efforts, scientific advancements, and a collective commitment to reducing our carbon footprint and building a more resilient world. Chapter 9. Emergency Preparedness. The future of wildfire management hinges on a wide range of strategies that balance technological advancements with better land use practices, increased resilience, and stronger community involvement. With wildfires becoming more intense and frequent due to climate change, and as human populations expand into fire-prone areas, it is increasingly clear that we must rethink our approach to fire management. The shift from a reactive to a proactive strategy is essential for reducing the destructive impacts of wildfires on people, property, and ecosystems. This future vision requires innovation, collaboration, and an integrated approach across multiple sectors and disciplines. One of the central elements of wildfire management in the future will be a greater emphasis on prevention rather than just suppression. This requires a multi-pronged approach that includes not only reducing fuel loads but also improving land management practices. Fuel management is perhaps the most straightforward but essential component of wildfire prevention. As we have seen in many fire-prone regions, the accumulation of dead trees, brush, and other flammable vegetation is one of the key factors contributing to wildfire risk. So our traditional fire suppression methods focus primarily on extinguishing active fires. Prevention seeks to reduce the fuel available for ignition in the first place. Techniques such as controlled burns, mechanical thinning of forests, and grazing by livestock can all be used to reduce the density of vegetation, making it less likely for wildfires to spread uncontrollably. Prescribed burns, a long-used technique where fires are intentionally set in a controlled manner, are expected to play a much more prominent role in future wildfire management. With the help of advanced technologies such as drones and satellite imagery, prescribed burns will become more precise, ensuring that they burn only targeted areas under specific environmental conditions. These controlled fires not only reduce fuel loads but also mimic natural fire cycles, helping ecosystems recover and even thrive. Prescribed burns will be critical in maintaining fire-dependent ecosystems, such as many forested areas that have evolved with fire as a natural component of their life cycle. However, managing prescribed burns requires careful planning and coordination, as there is always the potential for a controlled fire to escape and become an uncontrolled wildfire. Alongside fuel management, future wildfire management will benefit from the increased use of technology in both predictive and operational capacities. The integration of artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning, ML, will allow for more accurate fire prediction models. These systems will use vast amounts of data collected from satellites, drones, weather stations, and ground sensors to provide real-time predictive insights into fire behavior. By analyzing factors like wind speeds, temperature, humidity, fuel types, and topography, AI can provide a comprehensive view of where a fire is likely to spread, how fast it will move, and the potential impact on communities and ecosystems. This level of precision will enable fire managers to make faster, more informed decisions about resource allocation and evacuation plans. In addition to AI-driven modeling, the future of firefighting will see the increased use of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs or drones, to enhance situational awareness and tactical operations. Drones equipped with infrared cameras, thermal imaging, and real-time data transmission can fly into areas too dangerous for human crews to assess, providing live feeds of fire activity. These drones can be used to map fire perimeters, assess damage, and even help direct firefighting efforts by identifying hotspots. Furthermore, drones can drop fire retardants or water in specific locations, helping to contain fires without putting human firefighters at unnecessary risk. The use of UAVs in wildfire management will likely expand, making firefighting operations more efficient and safer. The role of satellites in wildfire monitoring is also poised for growth. Earth-observing satellites that capture thermal and visual imagery will become even more integral to wildfire management. These satellites can provide an early detection system for fires, often identifying smoke plumes or heat signatures long before fires become large enough to be detected by ground-based resources. Satellite technology can help improve global wildfire monitoring, providing data not only on the location and size of fires but also on air quality and ecological damage. The data from satellites can be shared in real time with firefighting agencies, emergency responders, and even the public, facilitating better coordination during wildfire events. Another crucial development in future wildfire management will be the integration of data from community-based monitoring and citizen science programs. So with the rise of smartphones, social media, and crowdsourced platforms, individuals living in fire-prone areas can play an active role in fire detection and response. Apps that allow residents to report sightings of smoke, fire, or unusual weather conditions will provide valuable data that can augment official monitoring systems. Additionally, the public can be more involved in wildfire preparedness through educational campaigns that teach fire-safe practices, encourage the creation of defensible space around homes, and promote community-wide fire prevention measures. This collaborative approach is essential in building resilience at the local level and ensuring that communities are not just responding to fires but actively working to prevent them. Equally important is the role of land use planning and community development in shaping the future of wildfire management. As urban sprawl continues, especially in areas that are at high risk for wildfires, it is crucial that fire-adaptive planning becomes a central feature of development policy. This means designing communities and infrastructure with fire risk in mind, using fire-resistant building materials, and creating defensible space around homes and properties. It also involves working with local governments to establish clear evacuation routes, emergency services, and public communication systems that can be activated quickly when fires threaten. In some cases, land use policies may need to change to restrict development in high-risk fire zones, ensuring that human habitation does not increase the vulnerability of both people and the environment. The future will also see a shift toward improved recovery and rehabilitation efforts in the wake of wildfires. While suppression efforts are often the focus during an active fire, recovery is a long-term process that involves restoring ecosystems, replanting forests, and rehabilitating affected communities. Restoration programs that use drones, satellite imaging, and advanced soil monitoring techniques will help assess damage and prioritize recovery efforts. Reforestation projects will benefit from innovative strategies, such as planting fire-resistant species or using drones to drop seeds in burned areas, which can help speed up the recovery of affected landscapes. The psychological and social impacts of wildfires are another area that must be addressed in future wildfire management. As the intensity and frequency of wildfires increase, so too will the mental health toll on individuals and communities affected by these disasters. Support services will need to become more integrated into emergency response systems, offering mental health resources, trauma counseling, and post-disaster recovery programs. Communities will also need to foster a culture of resilience, helping residents prepare for the emotional and social challenges of living in fire-prone areas. Finally, the future of wildfire management will require greater international collaboration and knowledge sharing. Wildfires are not confined by borders, and the global nature of the climate crisis means that fire management must become a shared priority for countries around the world. International cooperation in the exchange of firefighting resources, data, and expertise will be essential in managing wildfires in a rapidly changing climate. Global research into wildfire behavior, fire prevention techniques, and climate adaptation strategies will continue to inform national and local efforts, ensuring that communities worldwide are better prepared to face the challenges of the future. The future of wildfire management will be shaped by a combination of cutting-edge technologies, proactive strategies, and community-driven effort. By leveraging data and technology, improving land use planning, and strengthening international partnerships, we can work to mitigate the effects of wildfires and build more resilient communities in fire-prone areas. While the challenges are immense, the advancements in both scientific understanding and practical application offer hope for reducing the devastating impacts of wildfires in the years to come. The future is one where we not only fight fires but also work to prevent them, adapt to the changing climate, and protect both people and ecosystems from the growing threat of wildfires. Chapter 10: Community Resilience. The complexities of wildfire management are ever evolving, and as climate change accelerates, the role of policy and governance in shaping the future of wildfire management becomes even more crucial. Effective wildfire management requires not only scientific advancements and technological innovations, but also a clear, cohesive framework of policies and regulations that can guide response, prevention, and recovery efforts. Governments at all levels, local, state, and federal, must play an active role in coordinating efforts, allocating resources, and ensuring that communities are prepared for the challenges posed by an increasingly fire-prone world. One of the primary challenges of wildfire policy is the integration of wildfire management with broader environmental, land use, and climate change policies. Wildfires are not isolated events, they are deeply interconnected with the way we manage our lands, our water resources, and our approach to climate action. Governments need to recognize that fire is not just a threat to human life and property, but also an integral ecological process that shapes many landscapes. In some ecosystems, like those in the western United States, fire plays a crucial role in maintaining healthy forests and grasslands, fostering biodiversity, and facilitating the regeneration of plant species. This understanding must shape policies that balance the need for wildfire prevention with the need to protect and restore ecosystems that depend on fire as a natural disturbance. Land use planning policies are fundamental in reducing the risk of wildfires and improving community resilience. Zoning laws, building codes, and infrastructure planning must account for fire risk, particularly in fire-prone areas where urban development has encroached into wildlands. In many parts of the world, urban sprawl has led to the creation of wildland-urban interfaces. Homes and communities are located in close proximity to forests or grasslands that are highly susceptible to fire. In these areas, the potential for catastrophic wildfires increases as dry vegetation and erratic weather conditions collide with human development. Policy efforts to reduce the risks in these areas include stricter building codes that require fire-resistant materials, improved construction techniques, and the creation of defensible space around homes and properties to prevent the spread of flames. Moreover, fire management policy must be flexible enough to address the challenges posed by rapid population growth and urbanization, as well as the increasing concentration of people and infrastructure in fire-prone areas. This means implementing zoning restrictions that discourage construction in high-risk areas, providing incentives for homeowners to make their properties fire-safe, and ensuring that fire breaks, evacuation routes, and firefighting infrastructure are adequately developed in these vulnerable zones. These land use policies can significantly reduce the threat of wildfires and give firefighters and emergency responders more time to act during a fire. Funding and resource allocation also play a crucial role in shaping wildfire management policy. While emergency response to wildfires has traditionally focused on firefighting, long-term mitigation efforts, such as forest thinning, prescribed burning, and habitat restoration, must also be prioritized. Many of these activities require significant financial investment, and without sufficient funding, critical preventive work cannot be undertaken. In the past, the majority of funding for wildfire management has gone towards suppression efforts, fighting the fires once they have ignited, while prevention and mitigation measures have been underfunded. This approach is not sustainable in the face of increasing fire risk, especially in light of the financial burden that large wildfires place on communities, economies, ecosystems. Governments must rethink the way they allocate resources by prioritizing prevention and mitigation measures before fires start. This includes funding programs that support community preparedness, fuel reduction projects, and research into innovative fire management strategies. By investing in these proactive measures, governments can help reduce the need for expensive and resource-intensive firefighting operations. Similarly, funding should be directed toward improving early warning systems and fire prediction technologies, which can provide vital information to communities and emergency responders well before fires reach a critical stage. The role of governance in wildfire management must also extend to the regulation of climate change. While wildfires are a natural part of many ecosystems, their increasing frequency and intensity are driven in large part by human-induced climate change. Therefore, addressing the root cause of the problem requires robust climate policies at the local, national, and international levels. Governments must take action to mitigate the impacts of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, investing in renewable energy, and implementing policies that promote sustainable land use, forest conservation, and carbon sequestration. Policy initiatives focused on climate adaptation are also crucial in preparing for the inevitable impacts of climate change on wildfire behavior. This includes developing infrastructure that is resilient to wildfires, investing in water management systems that can help mitigate the effects of droughts, and encouraging land practices that enhance soil and vegetation health to better withstand fires. Incorporating climate science into wildfire management plans will ensure that fire-prone areas are prepared for the evolving conditions created by climate change and will help communities adapt to a future where wildfires are likely to be more frequent and more severe. Collaboration and coordination between various levels of government, the private sector, and local communities are vital in creating an effective wildfire management framework. Wildfires do not respect political boundaries, and as a result, firefighting efforts require coordination between local, state, and federal agencies. In the United States, for example, the federal government, through agencies like the U.S. Forest Service and the National Park Service, plays a critical role in managing public lands and responding to wildfires. However, many wildfires also occur on private lands, where local governments must take the lead in mitigation and prevention efforts. The complexities of this multi-layered governance system can result in fragmented responses if communication and cooperation are not prioritized. Clear guidelines for interagency collaboration, resource sharing, and joint training programs can enhance the effectiveness of wildfire management efforts. Additionally, involving local communities in wildfire management is essential for creating policies that reflect the specific needs and risks of particular areas. Community-based approaches to wildfire management, such as Firewise programs, enable residents to take responsibility for reducing fire hazards around their homes and neighborhoods. These programs teach homeowners how to create defensible space, use fire-resistant building materials, and prepare for evacuation. Empowering communities with knowledge and resources ensures that fire prevention is a shared responsibility, which can make a significant difference in reducing fire risk and building resilience. In the private sector, insurance companies and utility providers can also play a role in shaping wildfire policy. Insurers can incentivize homeowners and businesses in high-risk areas to adopt fire-resistant measures by offering discounts on premiums for fire mitigation efforts. Utilities, on the other hand, must address their role in igniting wildfires, as many recent large fires have been caused by faulty equipment or power lines. In some cases, utilities may be held financially liable for damages caused by their infrastructure, prompting them to take stronger measures to prevent ignitions and improve their wildfire risk management practices. So the role of international cooperation is another key aspect of future wildfire governance. Wildfires are not confined by national borders, and the global nature of climate change means that countries worldwide will increasingly face similar challenges in wildfire management. Sharing knowledge, resources, and expertise can improve fire management practices globally, particularly in regions that are just beginning to grapple with the impacts of wildfires. Collaborative international research on fire behavior, fire ecology, and mitigation strategies can provide valuable insights and help identify best practices that can be applied in different countries and regions. Ultimately, the future of wildfire management will require a comprehensive and coordinated approach that integrates scientific knowledge, technological advancements, sound policy, and effective governance. As climate change continues to escalate, policies that prioritize prevention, funding, community involvement, and climate action will become even more essential. Through proactive policies and strong governance, we can create a future where communities are better prepared for wildfires, ecosystems are protected, and the impacts of these devastating events are minimized. The success of these efforts will depend on our ability to adapt to a rapidly changing world, to work collaboratively, and to recognize that wildfire management is not just a response to an emergency, but a long-term commitment to building resilience in the face of growing risks. Chapter 11. Environmental Effects. As wildfires continue to increase in both frequency and intensity, the need for a robust and cohesive approach to rehabilitation and recovery becomes even more pressing. The aftermath of a wildfire extends far beyond the immediate danger of the flames and the heroic efforts to suppress them. The long-term impacts on ecosystems, communities, and economies require thoughtful, coordinated recovery strategies to restore both the natural environment and the lives of those affected. Rehabilitation efforts must address a broad range of challenges, from soil erosion and vegetation loss to the emotional toll on communities and the economic hardships faced by industries affected by wildfires. This chapter will delve into the critical aspects of recovery and the steps necessary to build resilience in the wake of devastation. In the immediate aftermath of a wildfire, one of the most urgent concerns is the stabilization of the burned landscape. Wildfires, particularly those that are severe, can leave behind a barren and fragile environment. Vegetation that once helped anchor the soil is destroyed, and the loss of plant cover leaves the land vulnerable to erosion. The loss of trees, shrubs, and grasses can lead to soil degradation and the washing away of topsoil, particularly in areas prone to heavy rainfall or steep slopes. Erosion not only threatens the stability of the land, but can also pollute nearby rivers, streams, and other water sources, creating long-term ecological challenges. Soil stabilization is a critical first step in the recovery process. Without proper intervention, the land can become unproductive and habitats can take decades to recover. Post-fire rehabilitation efforts often include the use of erosion control measures such as straw mulching, hydroseeding, and the installation of silt fences. These methods help retain soil and prevent runoff, ensuring that the land is protected during the crucial early stages of recovery. Additionally, planting native vegetation is an important part of restoring ecosystems. Selecting species that are adapted to the specific climate and soil conditions of the affected area, restoration efforts can help re-establish the natural balance and biodiversity of the ecosystem. However, this process can be slow, as it takes time for plants and trees to grow to maturity and provide the same ecological functions that existed prior to the fire. Beyond the physical recovery of the land, the rehabilitation of wildlife habitats is another vital aspect of post-fire recovery. Wildfires can devastate local wildlife populations, particularly those that are already vulnerable or endangered. Many species rely on specific plant communities or forest structures for food, shelter, and nesting sites. When these habitats are destroyed by fire, the animals that depend on them face immediate threats to their survival. Some species may be able to migrate to nearby areas, but others, particularly those with limited mobility or narrow habitat requirements, may be unable to relocate, leading to population declines or even local extinction. Efforts to restore wildlife habitats after a wildfire involve a combination of habitat rebuilding and species protection. So in some cases, supplemental feeding programs may be used to support wildlife populations that have been decimated by fire. This is particularly important for species that rely on particular food sources that have been destroyed or significantly reduced in the fixdantorftet. For example, in areas affected by wildfires, feeding programs have been used to support birds of prey, large mammals, and herbivores by providing supplementary food in the early stages of recovery. In other cases, wildlife corridors may be restored or created to facilitate the movement of animals from burned areas to more intact habitats. Wildlife protection measures may also include the establishment of temporary refuges where displaced species can find shelter while the broader landscape recovers. In addition to the ecological recovery efforts, the psychological and social impacts of wildfires must be addressed. For many people, the experience of a wildfire is a deeply traumatic event. The destruction of homes, the loss of possessions, and the displacement from one's community can have long-lasting emotional effects. In the immediate aftermath, the emotional toll on survivors can be overwhelming, as people grapple with the shock of losing everything they have worked for, or the fear of their loved ones' safety. Wildfire survivors may also experience anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as they process the event and begin the recovery process. Mental health support is a crucial part of post-wildfire recovery. Communities must provide access to counseling services, crisis intervention, and long-term mental health care for those affected. Social workers, mental health professionals, and community support groups play an essential role in helping survivors cope with the emotional impact of the disaster. The recovery process is not only about rebuilding homes and infrastructure, but also about restoring the emotional well-being of the individuals and families who have been impacted. Community resilience can be strengthened through efforts to provide resources, create support networks, and encourage open dialogue about the psychological toll of wildfires. Encouraging community members to share their stories and experiences can help reduce feelings of isolation and provide a sense of solidarity as people work through their grief and trauma together. Economic recovery is another critical aspect of post-fire rehabilitation. Wildfires often disrupt local economies by destroying homes, businesses, agricultural lands, and critical infrastructure such as roads, power lines, and water systems. The economic impacts of wildfires are felt not only by those directly affected but also by the broader community, particularly in regions where tourism, agriculture, or forestry are important industries. In many cases, the loss of livelihoods can take a long time to recover from, and economic stability may be severely impacted for years following a major wildfire event. In the agricultural sector, wildfires can destroy crops, kill livestock, and damage infrastructure such as barns and irrigation systems. Farmers and ranchers may face substantial financial losses as they try to rebuild their operations. To support economic recovery, it is essential to provide financial assistance in the form of grants, low-interest loans, and insurance payouts. Governments and non-profits can help provide recovery funds to farmers and business owners to rebuild their properties, replace lost assets, and get their operations back on track. Rebuilding damaged infrastructure such as bridges and roads is also a priority in ensuring that communities can return to normal functioning and that the economic engine of the region can continue to operate. In addition to direct financial aid, providing job training and workforce development programs is essential to help those who have lost their livelihoods find new employment opportunities. As regions recover from wildfires, the local workforce may shift to new industries such as wildfire mitigation, forest management, and environmental restoration. Training programs can help individuals transition to these new roles, providing them with the skills necessary to contribute to the long-term recovery efforts while also supporting the community's resilience. A particularly important aspect of rebuilding communities after a wildfire is ensuring that those who have lost their homes and belongings can rebuild in that are safer and more resilient. Post-fire recovery must involve not just rebuilding structures, but also creating fire-resistant communities that are better equipped to handle future wildfires. This includes designing homes and buildings with fire-resistant materials, establishing defensible space around properties, and ensuring that emergency services and evacuation routes are well-defined and easily accessible. By adopting fire-adaptive building practices, communities can reduce their vulnerability to future fires and ensure that they are better prepared for the increasing threat of wildfires in the years to come. In the longer term, post-fire recovery efforts must be centered around building resilience to future wildfires. This involves not only replanting forests and restoring habitats, but also improving land use planning, wildfire preparedness, and community engagement. Communities must be equipped with the tools and knowledge to prevent future disasters, which includes educating residents about fire safety, conducting regular fire drills, and creating disaster plans. Rebuilding after a wildfire is an opportunity to create more resilient communities that are better prepared for future fire events. In addition, regional and national policies must prioritize funding for wildfire recovery and mitigation efforts. Governments must recognize the long-term nature of wildfire recovery and allocate sufficient resources to support not only immediate relief efforts but also ongoing rehabilitation, restoration, and prevention programs. National disaster relief funds, as well as investments in infrastructure and land management, must be directed toward making communities safer and more resilient in the face of increasing fire risks. As the frequency and intensity of wildfires continue to rise, post-fire rehabilitation and recovery will remain critical components of wildfire management. A comprehensive approach to recovery, one that addresses environmental, social, and economic needs, will help communities heal and rebuild stronger than before. By focusing on prevention, mental health support, sustainable land use planning, and resilient infrastructure, we can create communities that are not only able to recover from wildfire devastation, but also better prepared to face the challenges of fire-prone future. The lessons learned from post-fire recovery efforts will shape the resilience of future generations, ensuring that the scars left by wildfires are not permanent, but rather serve as a catalyst for change, adaptation, and growth. Chapter 12. Wildfires and People. As we look ahead, it is evident that the challenges posed by wildfires will only continue to grow. The impacts of climate change, coupled with expanding human populations and development in fire-prone areas, will lead to more frequent, larger and more destructive wildfires. The need to adapt to this changing reality is urgent, and proactive measures must be taken to ensure that we are better equipped to handle the growing risks. Chapter 12 explores the long-term vision for wildfire management, focusing on innovative strategies, emerging technologies, and the collective responsibility needed to build resilience and mitigate the increasing threat of wildfires. One of the most important components of future wildfire management is the incorporation of advanced technology. As wildfire behavior becomes increasingly unpredictable due to the influence of climate change, the ability to monitor and predict fires will be a key factor in improving response efforts and reducing damage. Satellite-based systems, drones, and artificial intelligence (AI) are already being utilized in some areas to track wildfires in real time and provide predictive models that can forecast fire movement. These technologies allow emergency responders to make more informed decisions about evacuation orders, firefighting tactics, and resource allocation, giving them a significant advantage in managing large, fast-moving fires. Satellite imagery and remote sensing technologies can offer an overhead view of fire-prone areas, helping scientists identify changes in vegetation, moisture levels, and other factors that contribute to wildfire risk. These tools can also assist in detecting wildfires early, even in remote or difficult-to-reach areas. By combining these data sources with AI algorithms, fire behavior can be predicted with greater accuracy, allowing for better preparedness and a more targeted response. The integration of these technologies into wildfire management practices is still evolving, but it holds the potential to revolutionize the way we approach both fire prevention and firefighting efforts. Drones are another emerging technology that is enhancing wildfire management. Equipped with sensors and cameras, drones can be deployed to gather real-time data during wildfire events, helping responders understand the fire's behavior, track its progression, and assess the effectiveness of containment efforts. Drones are particularly valuable in assessing areas that are difficult or dangerous to access by ground crews, such as steep terrains or fire-prone forests. They can also be used to drop fire retardants or water on targeted areas, providing support for firefighting teams on the ground. As drone technology advances, it is likely that their role in wildfire management will continue to grow, offering new ways to improve the safety and efficiency of firefighting operations. Another area where technology is playing an increasingly important role is in the development of fire-resistant materials and construction techniques. Urban sprawl continues to push into fire-prone areas. Building homes and infrastructure that can withstand wildfires is crucial to reducing the devastation caused by fires. Fire-resistant building materials, such as fireproof roofing, fire-resistant walls, and tempered glass windows, are becoming more widely available and are being incorporated into building codes in many fire-prone regions. The use of these materials, along with fire-safe landscaping and defensible space techniques, can significantly reduce the risk of homes and communities being destroyed by wildfires. Innovative construction techniques, such as creating homes that are more resistant to ember storms or using fire-resistant coatings on structures, are also being explored. In addition, cities and municipalities are looking at ways to retrofit existing buildings to improve fire resilience. This includes reinforcing structures, installing fire suppression systems, and creating fire breaks around communities to prevent the spread of wildfires into urban areas. These efforts represent a long-term strategy to reduce the impact of wildfires and improve community safety. However, they also require significant investment from both the public and private sectors and necessitate updates to building codes and zoning laws to ensure that fire resilience is a priority in new developments. While technology can greatly enhance wildfire management, human behavior remains a central component in preventing and mitigating wildfires. Public education and community engagement are essential in reducing human-caused wildfires, which account for a significant percentage of all wildfires. Efforts to educate people about fire safety, such as not discarding cigarette butts in dry vegetation, properly extinguishing campfires, and understanding fire restrictions during high-risk periods, are vital to reducing the number of fires caused by human negligence. Public awareness campaigns can also promote the importance of creating defensible space around homes, using fire-resistant materials, and adhering to fire safety regulation. Local governments, fire departments, and environmental organizations can work together to raise awareness of these issues through outreach programs, workshops, and public service announcements. These efforts can have a significant impact in reducing the risk of wildfires and ensuring that communities are better prepared when fires do occur. Moreover, fostering a culture of resilience within communities is essential for addressing the challenges of wildfire recovery. Building a resilient community means empowering individuals to take responsibility for their own safety, while also creating a network of support that can provide assistance during and after a wildfire event. Community resilience can be achieved through collaborative efforts, such as establishing neighborhood watch programs, creating emergency preparedness plans, and developing local response teams. It also involves creating a sense of shared responsibility for fire prevention and recovery, where individuals and organizations work together to reduce fire risks, restore the environment, and support those who have been affected by wildfires. At the governmental level, policies must continue to evolve to address the changing landscape of wildfire risk. Governments at all levels need to recognize that the current approach to wildfire management is not sufficient to address the scale of the problem. More proactive measures must be taken, focusing on long-term prevention, mitigation, and rehabilitation. This includes investing in forest management practices that reduce fuel loads, conducting prescribed burns to reduce vegetation that can fuel wildfires, and protecting critical infrastructure such as water sources, power lines, and communication networks, which can be severely impacted by fires. State and federal governments must also ensure that wildfire management is adequately funded. The costs of wildfire suppression, recovery, and prevention are substantial, and many states and local governments struggle to allocate dedicated funding for wildfire prevention programs. Community resilience efforts and research into fire management strategies will be crucial for ensuring that fire-prone regions are better prepared to cope with the impacts of wildfires. Additionally, integrating wildfire risk reduction into broader land use and zoning policies can help guide development away from high-risk areas and ensure that new construction is built with fire resilience in mind. The role of international cooperation will also become more important as wildfire risks grow globally. While each country faces unique challenges when it comes to wildfire management, there is much to be learned from the experiences of other nations. Collaborative efforts to share best practices, exchange knowledge, and pool resources can enhance wildfire management strategies worldwide. In some cases, international teams may be able to assist in large-scale wildfire responses, particularly in areas where resources are limited. Global cooperation is also essential in addressing the root causes of wildfires, such as climate change, by collectively working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate the factors contributing to increased fire risk. In addition to addressing the challenges posed by wildfires, there is also an opportunity to harness their potential benefits. Fire is a natural process that plays a key role in many ecosystems, and in some cases, controlled burns or prescribed fires can be used as a tool to reduce fuel loads, improve soil quality, and promote biodiversity. By understanding the ecological role of fire and using it as a management tool, fire-prone areas can be better prepared for future wildfire events, and ecosystems can be restored to their natural balance. As the threat of wildfires continues to grow, so too must our commitment to building resilient, fire-adapted communities. This means investing in prevention, preparedness, recovery, and adaptation strategies that can help mitigate the impacts of wildfires while also promoting ecological health and community well-being. The lessons learned from the challenges of the past will shape our approach to managing the risks of the future, and by working together, governments, communities, industries, and individuals, we can create a more resilient world that is better equipped to face the growing threat of wildfires. By focusing on innovation, education, and collaboration, we can ensure that wildfire management moves beyond just suppression and recovery, evolving into a comprehensive, forward-thinking approach that anticipates and addresses the growing challenges ahead. Through science, technology, and collective action, we can build a future where wildfires are no longer an uncontrollable force of destruction, but a challenge we are prepared to meet with resilience, foresight, and determination. Chapter 13. Economic Costs. As the intensity of wildfires escalates across the United States, there is an increasing recognition that the management of wildfire risks must extend beyond immediate firefighting efforts and recovery. It is not enough to simply react to the current wave of fires. A paradigm shift is required, one that emphasizes long-term sustainability, prevention, and mitigation. This chapter delves into the concept of wildfire resilience, exploring the crucial role of preemptive strategies, adaptive management practices, and community involvement in minimizing the risks of catastrophic fires while safeguarding ecosystems and livelihoods. One of the cornerstones of wildfire resilience is the concept of prevention, which begins with understanding the underlying factors that contribute to wildfires. While some wildfires are natural events that occur as part of ecological cycles, human activities such as land development, agricultural practices, and even recreational activities play a significant role in igniting fires. In particular, the expanding urban wildland interface, where human communities meet vulnerable natural landscapes, has become one of the most significant contributors to the occurrence of wildfires. This interface is growing rapidly as more people move into previously undeveloped areas, often without fully understanding the fire risks that accompany such decisions. Prevention involves addressing these human-induced risks through responsible land use practices, fire-adaptive landscaping, and better community planning. Creating defensible space around homes and properties is one such measure that can significantly reduce the risk of a home being engulfed by a wildfire. The defensible space concept involves clearing flammable vegetation, maintaining a defensible barrier of non-combustible materials, and ensuring that homes are equipped with fire-resistant roofing and exterior walls. Communities can also implement fire-safe building codes that require new constructions to incorporate fire-resistant features, creating fire-resistant neighborhoods that stand a better chance of surviving a wildfire. Furthermore, zoning laws can be adapted to minimize development in high-risk areas. Governments and urban planners need to collaborate in ensuring that new developments avoid high-risk zones, such as areas with dense vegetation, steep slopes, or those that are regularly exposed to extreme weather conditions. By focusing on creating fire-safe communities through urban planning, prevention strategies can be put into action at the ground level, reducing the likelihood of catastrophic fires and ensuring that existing communities are less vulnerable. Another critical approach to wildfire prevention is the reduction of hazardous fuel loads in forests, forests and forest and other landscapes. Over the decades, fire suppression efforts have led to a buildup of vegetation, dead trees, and other combustible materials in many ecosystems, creating the perfect conditions for large-scale wildfires. While wildfire suppression is necessary to protect lives and property, it has also led to a dangerous imbalance in many ecosystems that depend on periodic fires for health and regeneration. As fuel loads increase, the fires that occur become more intense, difficult to control, and destructive. In response, land management agencies and environmental groups have begun using prescribed fires and controlled burns as a way to reduce these hazardous fuel loads safely. These carefully planned burns, conducted under specific weather and environmental conditions, mimic the natural role of fire in ecosystems while preventing uncontrolled wildfires. Prescribed burns help to clear out dead vegetation, reduce the risk of larger wildfires, and encourage the growth of fire-resistant plant species. These efforts not only help prevent the catastrophic fires of the future, but also play a critical role in maintaining biodiversity and ecosystem health. However, while prescribed burns are an important tool, they also require careful management. Overuse or poorly planned burns can lead to unintended consequences, such as excessive smoke, air pollution, or the dilution out of valuable plant and animal species. 4. A balance must be struck between controlled fire management and the preservation of natural habitats. This is where adaptive management practices come into play, allowing forest and land managers to continuously evaluate and adjust strategies to ensure that the methods being employed are effective, safe, and ecologically beneficial. Adaptation, as a broader concept, encompasses not only management practices but also the preparation and resilience of communities and ecosystems to the realities of a fire-prone future. Climate change is expected to exacerbate wildfire risks, with rising temperatures, prolonged droughts, and erratic weather patterns, creating the conditions for more frequent and intense fires. As a result, communities and ecosystems must adapt to these new fire dynamics by re-evaluating their risk profiles and developing more resilient systems. Adaptive management includes the use of climate models and predictive tools to assess the impact of future climate conditions on wildfire behavior, guiding land management decisions. One of the primary ways that communities can adapt to future fire risks is through fire preparedness. While mitigation efforts can reduce the probability and intensity of wildfires, it is also important for communities to be prepared to respond to fires when they do occur. This involves developing comprehensive emergency management plans that outline evacuation routes, shelter locations, and procedures for securing vulnerable populations. Education campaigns aimed at raising awareness of fire risks and encouraging residents to take proactive steps, such as creating defensible space or having emergency kits ready, can greatly improve community preparedness. Preparedness efforts should also extend to the mental and emotional resilience of individuals and communities. As the frequency and severity of wildfires increase, so too will the psychological toll on residents, especially those who have been personally affected by the destruction of their homes, property, or local environment. Addressing the mental health needs of wildfire survivors and first responders is critical in ensuring that individuals are able to recover and rebuild their lives. Providing access to counseling services, mental health support, and community programs can help alleviate the emotional burdens of surviving a catastrophic fire event. At the same time, communities must foster a culture of collective responsibility in which local citizens, first responders, and environmental groups work together to reduce fire risks. This means involving residents in community planning, conducting neighborhood fire drills, and encouraging local volunteer firefighting teams. So when communities work together to strengthen their preparedness and resilience, they are better able to respond to fire events and recover more quickly from the trauma and destruction they may cause. Strong community networks can also facilitate recovery in the aftermath of wildfires by ensuring that support systems are in place for those affected by the disaster. Land management and firefighting agencies also play an important role in strengthening resilience. These organizations must be equipped with the latest technology, training, and resources to manage wildfire risks effectively. Collaborating with local stakeholders, landowners, and community groups to design and implement fire prevention strategies is essential for creating sustainable fire management solutions. Traditionally, fire departments and response teams must be prepared for the increased frequency. This requires investing in modern firefighting equipment, building specialized teams, and ensuring that responders receive ongoing training in wildfire management tactics and safety protocols. Another component of building wildfire resilience is enhancing the ecological health of landscapes and ecosystems. Resilient ecosystems are more capable of recovering from wildfire events and can act as natural buffers against the spread of fire. One way to enhance ecological resilience is by promoting forest health through sustainable forest management practices. This includes thinning overgrown forests, removing dead or dying trees, and maintaining biodiversity by protecting native plant and animal species. Forest health programs aim to reduce the density of vegetation that could fuel a wildfire and promote the regeneration of fire-resistant species that are better adapted to survive fire events. The resilience of ecosystems can also be strengthened by restoring habitats that have been damaged by previous fires or other environmental stresses. Restoration efforts focus on replanting native vegetation, stabilizing soil to prevent erosion, and reintroducing species that may have been displaced by fire. These efforts not only help to preserve biodiversity, but also support the broader goal of maintaining healthy, fire-resistant landscapes that are better equipped to withstand the increasing frequency of wildfires. Finally, the importance of policy development and legislative support cannot be overstated in building wildfire resilience. Governments must recognize the need for comprehensive wildfire management strategies and allocate sufficient resources to support these efforts. This includes funding for prevention programs, land management initiatives, community resilience projects, and research into new fire management technologies. Additionally, policies should be developed to incentivize sustainable land use practices, fire-adaptive construction methods, and the responsible management of natural resources. Long-term funding commitments are essential to ensure that wildfire resilience remains a priority as the threat of wildfires intensifies. In conclusion, building resilience to wildfires is a multifaceted challenge that requires the coordinated efforts of individuals, communities, governments, and organizations. Through a combination of prevention, adaptive management, community preparedness, and ecosystem restoration, we can mitigate the risks posed by wildfires while safeguarding the natural environment and the people who depend on it. By fostering a culture of resilience, we can ensure that our communities are better equipped to handle the growing threat of wildfires and can recover more quickly from their devastating impacts. The path to resilience is long, but by working together and embracing innovative solutions, we can create a fire-resilient future for all. Chapter 14: Wildfires and Climate Change. As we continue to navigate the increasing threat of wildfires across the United States, it becomes clear that addressing the issue requires not only technological and policy solutions, but also a broader societal shift in how we perceive and interact with fire-prone landscapes. This chapter explores the intersection of wildfire management, culture, and social responsibility, emphasizing the importance of fostering a collective mindset that embraces prevention, adaptation, and a deeper understanding of the natural role of fire in ecosystems. One of the most challenging aspects of wildfire management is changing public attitudes towards fire. Historically, fire has been viewed predominantly as a destructive force to be feared and fought at all costs. For many, wildfires represent a direct threat to life, property, and livelihoods. While this is undeniably true, it is also important to recognize that fire plays a vital ecological role in many landscapes, serving as a natural process that can rejuvenate forests, promote biodiversity, and maintain healthy ecosystems. Many plant species, for example, rely on fire to release their seeds, and certain wildlife populations thrive in post-fire environments. Fire, in its natural form, is not inherently evil. It is a tool of nature that has evolved alongside ecosystems for millennia. However, the increasing frequency and intensity of wildfires, coupled with the human influence on fire behavior through climate change, urban development, and forest mismanagement, have turned fire from a manageable ecological process into an unpredictable and devastating force. It is this changing dynamic, where fire, once a regular and somewhat controlled event in many ecosystems, has become an out-of-control disaster, that demands a re-evaluation of how society approaches fire. Changing the narrative around fire begins with understanding its dual nature, both destructive and essential. Public education campaigns play a key role in shifting this narrative. The focus should be on educating people about the benefits of fire in ecosystems, as well as the risks it poses when human activities intersect with fire-prone landscapes. Schools, community organizations, and environmental groups can work together to foster an understanding of the role of fire in forest health, wildfire prevention strategies, and how communities can live harmoniously with fire-prone landscapes. For example, fire education programs that emphasize the importance of prescribed burns, forest thinning, and creating defensible space around homes are essential to helping communities reduce their vulnerability to wildfires. At the same time, these programs can educate residents about the ecological benefits of fire and why some landscapes need periodic fire events to remain healthy. By framing fire as a natural, controllable force rather than an enemy to be constantly battled, we can begin to shift public perception and encourage a more sustainable and responsible approach to fire management. Additionally, fire-prone communities must adopt a fire-adapted mindset, which involves understanding that wildfires are an inherent part of living in certain regions, and that preparing for, mitigating, and adapting to their presence is essential to long-term safety and resilience. Fire-adapted communities are those that have proactively incorporated fire-resilient practices into their infrastructure, housing, and landscaping. They recognize the importance of maintaining a buffer between human settlements and wildland areas, using fire-resistant building materials, creating defensible space, and investing in education and preparedness efforts. In addition to adopting a fire-adapted mindset, communities must also embrace the concept of collective responsibility. Wildfire management is not the sole responsibility of firefighters or government agencies. It requires the participation of every member of society. Local residents, businesses, and organizations all have a role to play in reducing fire risks, whether it is by maintaining defensible space around their properties, practicing safe fire behaviors, or working together to clear out hazardous vegetation. Community-driven efforts, such as neighborhood fire preparedness programs, volunteer firefighting teams, and collaborative land management practices, can enhance resilience and foster a sense of shared responsibility for fire safety. This collective responsibility also extends to the recognition that wildfire management is not an isolated issue, but is closely intertwined with broader environmental and social challenges. Climate change, land use planning, and socioeconomic disparities all contribute to the growing wildfire crisis, and these issues must be addressed in tandem with fire management strategies. For instance, addressing the root causes of climate change, such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions, can help mitigate the conditions that make wildfires more frequent and severe. Similarly, promoting responsible land use policies that prevent the encroachment of urban development into fire-prone areas can reduce the risk of catastrophic fires and their impacts on communities. Another critical aspect of building a culture of fire resilience is ensuring that communities are not only prepared for wildfires but are also supported in the aftermath. Recovery from a major wildfire is a long and complex process that requires the collaboration of local, state, and federal agencies, as well as community organizations and individuals. The emotional and psychological toll of a wildfire can be as devastating as the physical destruction it causes, and the process of rebuilding homes, businesses, and lives can take years. To support wildfire recovery, it is essential to provide adequate resources for survivors, including mental health services, financial assistance, and community rebuilding efforts. This involves not only providing immediate relief but also investing in long-term recovery strategies that focus on restoring the environment, rebuilding infrastructure, and helping communities return to a state of normalcy. In this process, it is important to recognize that recovery is not just about rebuilding homes and businesses, but also about restoring a sense of community and hope. Mental health support is particularly crucial for individuals who have lost their homes, property, or loved ones in a wildfire. Studies have shown that the psychological impact of experiencing a wildfire can be long-lasting, with survivors suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and grief. Providing accessible counseling services, support groups, and resources for coping with trauma is vital for helping survivors heal and rebuild their lives. Addressing these emotional and psychological needs is an integral part of the overall recovery process and contributes to the long-term resilience of communities. Social vulnerability is another aspect that must be considered in the context of wildfire resilience. Certain groups, such as low-income communities, elderly residents, and individuals with disabilities, are often disproportionately impacted by wildfires due to their limited resources and access to information. It is essential to ensure that these vulnerable populations are adequately prepared for wildfire events and are supported during and after the disaster. This includes providing targeted outreach and education, as well as ensuring that emergency response plans are inclusive and accessible to all residents. Furthermore, efforts to address social vulnerability must go beyond the immediate aftermath of fire. Long-term support, such as affordable housing initiatives, job training programs, and community development projects, can help rebuild communities in a way that is more resilient and equitable. By ensuring that marginalized populations have the resources and support they need to recover and thrive, we can create more inclusive, fire-resilient communities. So another important element in the evolution of wildfire management is the growing role of indigenous knowledge and practices in fire management. Indigenous communities have a deep understanding of fire and its role in the landscape, having used controlled burns for thousands of years to manage vegetation, maintain biodiversity, and prevent large-scale wildfires. These traditional fire practices are based on a profound knowledge of local ecosystems, weather patterns, and fire behavior, and they offer valuable insights into sustainable fire management. Incorporating indigenous knowledge into modern wildfire management practices can help to restore a more holistic approach to fire. Many indigenous communities are now working alongside government agencies and environmental organizations to share their fire stewardship knowledge and participate in collaborative fire management efforts. This partnership not only helps to improve fire prevention strategies, but also honors and revitalizes indigenous cultural practices and tradition. Finally, addressing the issue of wildfires requires a multifaceted approach that combines education, community involvement, policy change, and technological innovation. A future where wildfires are less destructive and more manageable is within reach if we commit to a comprehensive, forward-thinking approach that incorporates prevention, resilience, and adaptation. By building a culture of fire resilience, embracing new technologies, and fostering collaboration at all levels of society, we can ensure that communities are better prepared for the challenges posed by wildfires and that we are actively working to protect both people and the environment from the devastating impacts of fire. This shift in mindset towards viewing fire as both a natural process and a risk that must be managed requires a concerted effort from individuals, communities, organizations, and governments. It is only through a collective commitment to fire resilience that we can ensure that future generations will not only survive wildfires but will be able to thrive in fire-prone landscapes. Chapter 15. Advances in Wildfire Management. As the United States grapples with the escalating threat of wildfires, it is becoming increasingly clear that the challenges associated with wildfire management are deeply interconnected with a wide range of social, economic, and environmental issues. This chapter delves into the role that innovation, research, and technological advancements play in addressing these challenges, exploring how cutting-edge solutions can help mitigate the impacts of wildfires, improve preparedness, enhance firefighting efforts, and ultimately build more resilient communities. It emphasizes that while traditional approaches to wildfire management have provided essential tools, the growing intensity and frequency of fires demand novel strategies that incorporate science, technology, and cross-disciplinary collaboration. One of the primary areas in which innovation is making a significant impact is in the realm of wildfire prediction early detection. Accurate prediction of wildfire behavior and early detection of fires before they spread uncontrollably are critical to minimizing the loss of life, property, and resources. In recent years, advancements in satellite technology, remote sensing, and artificial intelligence (AI) have enabled scientists and fire management agencies to monitor landscapes in real time, tracking factors such as vegetation conditions, fuel loads, and weather patterns that can influence fire behavior. These tools provide vital data that can be used to predict where and when wildfires are most likely to occur, allowing for proactive measures to be taken before a fire ignites. For example, AI algorithms and machine learning models are now being used to analyze vast amounts of environmental data, such as temperature, humidity, wind speed, and soil moisture levels, to predict the likelihood of a fire starting or escalating. These predictive models are able to incorporate complex variables and identify patterns that may not be immediately apparent to human analysts, offering a more accurate picture of potential fire risks. This predictive capability allows fire managers to allocate resources more effectively, deploy firefighters to high-risk areas, and issue early warnings to communities at risk. Similarly, remote sensing technologies, such as drones, satellites, and weather balloons, are being employed to detect fires in their earliest stages. Drones equipped with infrared cameras can fly over fire-prone areas to identify heat signatures and detect fires that may be invisible to the naked eye. Satellites can capture high-resolution images of landscapes and provide real-time data on vegetation health, moisture levels, and fire activity, enabling fire management agencies to respond more quickly and effectively. These technologies not only improve early detection but also help to track the movement of fires once they have started, providing critical information to guide firefighting efforts. Another key area of innovation is in the development of firefighting technologies and tools. Traditional firefighting techniques, such as using water to douse flames or fire retardants to slow fire spread, remain essential, but new technologies are offering more efficient and effective ways to combat wildfires. For example, advancements in firefighting equipment, such as more powerful fire hoses, improved personal protective equipment, PPE for firefighters, and high-tech fire engines, have enhanced the safety and effectiveness of firefighting teams. In addition, specialized firefighting drones and robots are increasingly being used to fight fires in areas that are too dangerous for human responders. Firefighting drones, equipped with thermal imaging cameras and the ability to drop fire retardant or water in targeted areas, provide an important tool for firefighting efforts. These drones are particularly useful in situations where fire behavior is unpredictable or access is limited, such as in steep terrain or remote wilderness areas. Similarly, firefighting robots designed to navigate hazardous environments can assist with fire suppression efforts by applying fire retardants or clearing vegetation to create fire breaks. These robots can work autonomously or be remotely controlled, reducing the risk to human responders and enabling firefighting efforts to continue in areas that are difficult to reach. One of the most exciting areas of technological innovation is the development of fire-resistant materials and fireproof building designs. As the urban wildland interface continues to grow, communities are increasingly vulnerable to the encroachment of wildfires. To mitigate this risk, researchers are focusing on creating fire-resistant materials for homes and infrastructure that can withstand the extreme conditions of a wildfire. These materials, which include fire-resistant roofing, siding, and insulation, can help reduce the likelihood of buildings catching fire during a wildfire. In addition to fire-resistant materials, fireproof building designs are being developed to incorporate features that minimize fire risk. For example, creating defensible space around buildings by clearing vegetation, using non-combustible landscaping, and ensuring that homes are equipped with fire-resistant vents, windows, and doors can significantly reduce the chances of a structure being ignited by a wildfire. Building codes and zoning laws are also being updated to require fire-resistant construction methods and materials for new homes and developments, particularly in areas that are at high risk of wildfires. Another key innovation that is reshaping wildfire management is the use of data analytics and artificial intelligence in decision-making. The integration of big data, machine learning, and advanced algorithms into fire management strategies is transforming how fire behavior is understood and how firefighting efforts are coordinated. By analyzing vast amounts of data from sensors, satellites, drones, and weather stations, AI systems can identify patterns in fire behavior, track fire movement in real time, and even recommend optimal firefighting strategies. For example, AI-powered systems can analyze historical fire data, vegetation conditions, and weather patterns to predict how a fire is likely to spread. This predictive capability enables fire managers to make data-driven decisions, such as determining where to create fire breaks, where to deploy resources, and when to evacuate communities. By using data to inform decisions, fire management agencies can respond more quickly and effectively, reducing the impact of wildfires and saving lives. So while technology plays a critical role in wildfire management, it is equally important to consider how these innovations are integrated into broader strategies for prevention, mitigation, and recovery. One such strategy is the use of prescribed burns or controlled burns, which are increasingly being supported by advanced technology. Prescribed burns are a valuable tool for reducing hazardous fuel loads and restoring the health of ecosystems, but they require precise planning and execution to ensure safety and effectiveness. Advanced weather forecasting, satellite imagery, and real-time monitoring systems are now being used to improve the planning and execution of prescribed burns. These technologies help fire managers assess conditions such as wind speed, humidity, and fuel moisture levels, which are critical to determining the safety and success of a prescribed burn. By using data to inform their decisions, fire managers can increase the likelihood of successful burns, reduce the risk of unintended wildfires, and improve the health of fire-prone ecosystems. As we look to the future, there is also increasing recognition of the need for a holistic, cross-disciplinary approach to wildfire management. The challenges posed by wildfires are complex and multifaceted, requiring collaboration across sectors such as climate science, urban planning, forestry, emergency management. Researchers are exploring new ways to integrate knowledge and expertise from diverse fields to develop more effective solutions to the wildfire crisis. One promising area of research is the study of the relationship between wildfires and climate change. As global temperatures rise and weather patterns become more erratic, the conditions that fuel wildfires, such as prolonged droughts, extreme heat, and high winds, are becoming more common. Understanding how climate change is influencing wildfire behavior and fire-prone regions is critical to developing long-term strategies for mitigation and adaptation. By combining climate models with fire behavior data, researchers can better predict how future climate conditions will impact wildfire risk and help inform policies aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions and building more resilient communities. The integration of fire management into broader land use and urban planning efforts is another key area where innovation is making a difference. By incorporating wildfire risk assessments into land use decisions, cities and counties can develop zoning regulations that limit development in high-risk areas, promote fire-resistant construction methods, and protect natural fire breaks. In addition, fire-resilient communities can be designed with features such as green spaces, fire-resistant infrastructure, and community evacuation plans, ensuring that people are better prepared to face the challenges of living in fire-prone areas. Finally, it is essential to recognize the importance of public engagement and community involvement in wildfire management. While technology and innovation are crucial to improving fire preparedness and response, communities must be actively engaged in creating fire-adapted, resilient environments. Public education campaigns, community fire drills, and local preparedness programs can help individuals and families understand the risks of wildfires and take proactive steps to protect themselves and their property. One example of this community-driven approach is the creation of Firewise USA programs, which encourage residents to take responsibility for their own fire safety by implementing fire-resistant measures on their property and collaborating with neighbors to create defensible space. These programs not only improve the safety of individual homes, but also foster a sense of community collaboration and shared responsibility for wildfire risk reduction. In conclusion, the future of wildfire management in the United States lies in the integration of innovative technologies, research, and cross-disciplinary collaboration. By embracing new tools, such as predictive modeling, AI, drones, and fire-resistant materials, we can improve the effectiveness of firefighting efforts, enhance preparedness, and build more resilient communities. However, these innovations must be coupled with a broader societal commitment to prevention, mitigation, and adaptation. By combining technological advancements with a culture of collective responsibility and sustainable land management, can we ensure a safer, more resilient future in the face of an increasingly wildfire-prone world. Chapter 16. Living with Fire. In understanding the multifaceted challenge of wildfires in the United States, it is essential to approach the issue not just from a technical or policy perspective, but through the lens of equity, justice, and inclusivity. Wildfires do not impact all communities equally. Marginalized and vulnerable populations often face disproportionate risks and hardships when it comes to both the immediate dangers of wildfires and the long-term recovery process. This chapter delves into the critical importance of addressing these disparities, ensuring that wildfire management policies and practices are designed with the needs of all communities in mind, and promoting a more equitable approach to wildfire resilience and recovery. One of the first steps in fostering a more equitable wildfire response is recognizing the social vulnerability of certain groups. Low-income communities, people of color, Elderly individuals, people with disabilities, and those living in rural or remote areas often experience the worst effects of wildfires, whether in terms of direct exposure to the fire itself or the compounded challenges during the aftermath. These communities often lack the financial resources, access to information, or social networks that can make a critical difference in preparing for and recovering from a wildfire disaster. For example, low-income communities may live in high-risk areas due to the affordability of land or housing in fire-prone regions. Without the means to implement mitigation measures like creating defensible space around homes or investing in fire-resistant materials, these residents are left more vulnerable when wildfires strike. Furthermore, individuals with limited financial resources may not be able to evacuate as easily as wealthier residents, who may have access to transportation or the financial means to stay in safer locations during a wildfire event. Similarly, communities of color, particularly those with a history of systemic neglect or disinvestment, often bear the brunt of wildfire impacts. In many cases, these communities may lack the political power or resources to advocate for wildfire mitigation measures in their areas or to access critical resources during and after a wildfire. Additionally, language barriers, cultural differences, and distrust of governmental agencies can further hinder effective communication and response efforts. To address these inequities, it is crucial to ensure that marginalized communities are not only included in the planning and decision-making processes related to wildfire management, but also given the resources and support needed to enhance their resilience to wildfires. Public outreach and education campaigns should be designed to reach these communities, providing them with accessible and culturally relevant information on wildfire prevention, evacuation routes, and safety measures. These efforts should be informed by community input to ensure that they resonate with local needs and concerns. Additionally, community-based organizations that serve marginalized populations can play an essential role in building resilience. These organizations can act as trusted intermediaries, helping to distribute resources, provide education, and support community-led efforts to reduce wildfire risks. For instance, some grassroots organizations have been instrumental in promoting firewise practices in low-income and underserved communities, offering free or subsidized services to help residents clear brush or install fire-resistant materials on their homes. Equitable wildfire management also requires addressing the broader social and economic factors that contribute to vulnerability. Affordable housing is a critical piece of this puzzle, ensuring that people who live in fire-prone areas have access to safe, affordable housing options that are built with fire-resistant materials and located outside of high-risk zones. Urban planning decisions should prioritize the safety of all residents, particularly those living in vulnerable neighborhoods, enforcing zoning regulations that prevent the construction of homes in wildfire-prone areas and promoting the development of fire-resilient infrastructure. When it comes to the recovery process, equity is just as critical. So in major wildfire, communities face not only the physical destruction of homes, infrastructure, and natural resources, but also the emotional and psychological toll of the disaster. Survivors must contend with grief, trauma, and financial instability, and the recovery process can be long and arduous. For marginalized communities, this recovery process is often more challenging due to historical inequities and barriers to accessing support. For example, lower-income residents may struggle to access insurance payouts or federal disaster relief funds, either because they lack proper documentation, have inadequate coverage, or simply cannot navigate the complex bureaucracy of relief programs. Additionally, individuals who have lost their homes may face significant barriers to rebuilding, including difficulty accessing loans, securing construction materials, or finding affordable housing. These challenges are compounded by the emotional stress of losing a home, possessions, and, in some cases, loved ones. Incorporating equity into the recovery process requires that resources and support are distributed in a way that acknowledges the different needs of affected communities. Relief efforts must prioritize vulnerable populations, ensuring that those with the least resources are not left behind. This may involve providing targeted financial assistance, offering mental health services that are culturally sensitive, and ensuring that rebuilding efforts are inclusive of all communities, particularly those that are most at risk. mental health support is particularly important in the recovery process. Survivors of wildfires often experience trauma, grief and post-traumatic disorder, PTSD, particularly when they have lost their homes, their livelihoods or loved ones. Vulnerable populations, such as those in low-income communities or communities of color, may experience additional stress due to pre-existing social and economic disparities. Providing adequate and accessible mental health services, particularly in the aftermath of a disaster, is essential to helping survivors heal and rebuild their lives. Community-based mental health programs, peer support networks, and culturally competent counselors can help provide the support that individuals and families need to navigate the emotional fallout from a wildfire. In addition to individual counseling, group therapy and community healing circles can offer survivors the opportunity to process their grief and connect with others who are going through similar experiences. The goal is to create a sense of solidarity and collective resilience, helping survivors feel supported as they rebuild their lives. The issue of social vulnerability is also intertwined with the broader conversation around climate change and environmental justice. For wildfires become more frequent and intense due to the effects of climate change, the burden of these disasters disproportionately falls on the communities that are least responsible for the environmental damage caused by climate change. Historically marginalized communities who have contributed the least to greenhouse gas emissions are often the ones who bear the brunt of its impacts. Climate justice therefore calls for not only mitigating the impacts of climate change, but also addressing the historical and structural inequalities that have made these communities more vulnerable to disasters like wildfires. Incorporating climate justice into wildfire management means addressing the root causes of climate change while simultaneously building resilience in communities that are most affected by its consequences. This includes supporting policies that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, transitioning to renewable energy sources, and investing in community-led solutions to climate adaptation. Furthermore, it requires ensuring that communities impacted by climate change have a voice in policy decisions and that their needs and concerns are central to the development of wildfire resilience strategies. So one of the most important ways to address the equity implications of wildfire management is to involve diverse voices in the decision-making process. Communities that are most at risk of wildfires must be involved in shaping policies and strategies that impact their safety and well-being. This can be achieved through community-based planning processes that actively seek input from residents, particularly those who are vulnerable or marginalized. Local governments, fire management agencies, and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, must work together to ensure that the needs of all communities are heard and that their concerns are incorporated into fire management plan. Additionally, it is important to empower local communities to take ownership of their wildfire resilience efforts. By providing communities with the tools, knowledge, and resources they need to reduce their wildfire risks, we can build a more inclusive and resilient approach to wildfire management. This can include offering training programs on fire prevention, creating neighborhood fire watch programs, and supporting local fire brigades or volunteer firefighting teams. Communities that are actively engaged in fire risk reduction are more likely to be prepared when a wildfire occurs and more likely to recover quickly afterward. In conclusion, addressing the equity implications of wildfire management is essential to creating a more just and resilient society. Wildfires are not just a threat to individual homes or properties, they are a threat to entire communities, and the impact is not felt equally across society. By ensuring that marginalized and vulnerable populations have access to the resources, support and representation they need, we can reduce the disproportionate impacts of wildfires and build stronger, more resilient communities for all. Equitable wildfire management is not just about protecting lives and property, it is about fostering a sense of shared responsibility and ensuring that all communities have the opportunity to thrive, no matter the risks they face. Chapter 17. What can you do? As wildfires become an increasingly significant threat in the United States, it is evident that the challenges faced by communities, fire management agencies, and policymakers are not just immediate but long-term. A successful approach to combating wildfires and minimizing their destructive impact will require robust, sustainable solutions that extend beyond the immediate actions taken during a fire event. This chapter explores the ongoing need for long-term strategies in wildfire management, looking at prevention, community adaptation, land management practices, policy reforms, and collaborations that will shape the future of wildfire resilience across the nation. The foundational principle of any long-term strategy for wildfire management lies in prevention. Prevention is the most effective way to reduce the scale of wildfire disasters, as it helps to address the root causes before they result in destruction. While the frequency and intensity of wildfires are influenced by factors such as climate change and weather patterns, human activity remains the most significant factor in wildfire ignition. In fact, a large proportion of wildfires are caused by human actions, from unattended campfires to electrical malfunctions, discarded cigarette butts, and arson. As such, a key element of long-term prevention efforts must be the continued focus on reducing human-caused fires. One significant method to prevent human-caused wildfires is to increase public awareness and education. Outreach programs that educate residents in fire-prone areas about fire safety practices, such as proper campfire management, maintaining defensible space, and understanding fire weather conditions, can greatly reduce the risk of accidental ignitions. Such educational campaigns should be targeted at all segments of the population, including those who may be less familiar with wildfire risks, such as newcomers to rural or wildland-urban interface areas, or younger generations. Building a fire-conscious culture is integral to ensuring that communities take the necessary precautions to prevent wildfires. Another important component of wildfire prevention is improving building practices and land management in fire-prone areas. This is where the design and construction of fire-resilient homes and infrastructure come into play. Encouraging the use of fire-resistant materials, non-combustible landscaping, and fire-safe building designs can significantly reduce the likelihood of structures catching fire during a wildfire event. In addition, zoning regulations must prioritize fire-safe construction practices in areas at high risk for wildfire. Establishing fire breaks and creating defensible spaces around homes and infrastructure should also be a focus of trees. These efforts require consistent collaboration between local governments, property developers, and residents to ensure that fire safety is prioritized in land use decisions. Long-term land management strategies are also crucial in preventing wildfires and protecting communities. Forest management practices, including controlled burns, thinning and brush clearing, are essential tools for reducing fuel loads in wildfire-prone areas. Many ecosystems in the western U.S., for example, have evolved with fire, and periodic fires are natural to their life cycle. However, over the years, fire suppression policies have allowed fuel to accumulate in many forests, which has increased the intensity of subsequent fires. Returning to a more balanced approach, where controlled, low-intensity fires are used to reduce excess vegetation, can help prevent catastrophic wildfires. These methods also promote ecosystem health, restore biodiversity, and reduce the overall risk to communities living in or near forests. Incorporating modern technologies and data into long-term land management is another important piece of the wildfire prevention puzzle. Satellite imagery, remote sensing, and machine learning models can be employed to monitor vegetation health, predict fire behavior, and identify potential fire risks in real time. These tools can help land managers understand fuel loads, moisture content, and fire behavior across vast landscapes. Through this data-driven approach, they can make informed decisions about where to implement forest management practices and identify areas that are at the highest risk of fire. Additionally, early warning systems powered by technology can alert communities about conditions that may lead to wildfires, giving them the opportunity to take proactive measures. A critical aspect of long-term wildfire management is the creation of resilient communities that can withstand and recover from fire events. This involves strengthening the capacity of communities to adapt to wildfire risk and ensuring they are well prepared for potential disasters. Building resilience goes beyond just fireproofing homes. It encompasses creating networks of community support, reinforcing emergency response systems, and fostering collective preparedness. Public policies should be focused on developing and enforcing building codes, fire-resistant infrastructure, and emergency evacuation plans, ensuring that every community has the resources it needs to be resilient. Community engagement is also a key factor in promoting resilience. Residents of fire-prone areas must be actively involved in the planning process to ensure that strategies meet the specific needs of their communities. It is essential to foster a sense of shared responsibility for wildfire risk reduction. Neighborhood associations, community leaders, and local government agencies must collaborate to create fire safety programs that are accessible and effective. Programs like Firewise USA and community-wide fire drills can help empower residents, educate them on fire preparedness, and allow them to take proactive steps to protect their home. Another critical area of focus for long-term strategies is policy reform. Federal, state, and local governments must work together to create comprehensive and cohesive fire policies that promote prevention, resilience, and recovery. These policies must incorporate the growing body of research on wildfire behavior, climate change, and the socio-economic impacts of wildfires. Legislation must prioritize funding for fire prevention programs, disaster recovery, and land management efforts while addressing the need for more robust insurance options for residents in wildfire-prone areas. Additionally, zoning laws and building codes should be updated to reflect the increasing severity of wildfire risks, ensuring that new developments are designed with resilience in mind. One aspect of policy reform that deserves particular attention is the treatment of wildfire fighting personnel. Firefighters, particularly those in federal and state agencies, often face significant health and safety risks, including exposure to hazardous materials, extreme heat, and physical exhaustion. Long-term strategies must include providing firefighters with the resources and training necessary to keep them safe on the front lines. Additionally, fair wages, mental health support, and better compensation packages are essential to ensure that firefighting remains a viable and sustainable career path. After experiencing traumatic or high-stress situations, such as battling a massive wildfire, firefighters should have access to the psychological support services they need to recover and continue performing their duties. Beyond immediate recovery efforts, long-term recovery from wildfires requires a multifaceted approach that includes the restoring damaged ecosystems, rebuilding homes and infrastructure, and providing ongoing support to affected communities. Land restoration efforts should focus on replanting fire-damaged landscapes with native vegetation, addressing soil erosion, and protecting watersheds. Restoring these ecosystems not only improves the environment but also mitigates the risks of post-fire flooding and landslides. For the individuals and families whose homes have been destroyed or damaged by wildfires, long-term recovery can be a slow and difficult process. Providing financial assistance, housing options, and mental health resources during the recovery phase is essential to helping individuals and communities rebuild their lives. Moreover, offering assistance in the form of grants, low-interest loans, and public-private partnerships can help communities reconstruct in a way that incorporates fire-resistant building materials and infrastructure. In the wake of a disaster, people often need emotional and financial support to move forward. Thus, comprehensive recovery programs that include both material and psychological support are critical for the long-term resilience of affected populations. Lastly, building long-term wildfire resilience will require cross-sector collaboration and a holistic approach. Governments, businesses, researchers, non-profits, and community leaders must work together to ensure that wildfire policies and practices are well coordinated, informed by the latest science, and responsive to local needs. Public-private partnerships can be instrumental in providing funding for research, developing new technologies, and implementing wildfire mitigation strategies. Academic and scientific institutions play an essential role in advancing the understanding of wildfire behavior and developing new tools for prevention and firefighting. Collaborative efforts should aim to bridge the gaps between different stakeholders, ensuring that all voices are heard and all perspectives are considered, creating wildfire management solutions. In conclusion, long-term strategies for wildfire management are essential for creating a future in which communities are prepared for, resilient to, and capable of recovering from wildfire events. This requires a holistic approach that emphasizes prevention, resilience, sustainable land management, policy reform, and cross-sector collaboration. Through these strategies, we can mitigate the growing risks of wildfires, protect lives and property, and ultimately create communities that are better equipped to face the challenges of a changing climate and an increasingly fire-prone future.